Everyone has something to share, in either wisdom, story, or logic. And it's clearly amazing to hear all the differing missing links discovered by people, unique to their own journeys, and in how they have come to discover them. Together, we can help to build a bigger picture for a better future, for a brighter tomorrow. Let's stand united. Let's remove the veils, and let's create a new world together. Are you that missing link? Join Jesse Hale on the Missing Link Talk Show as he helps to unveil the mystery through the unique wisdom and store of others.
3, 2, 1.
Welcome everybody here back to the Missing Link. Today we're excited to talk to and honored to talk to a linguistic thinker and writer who was born in the strange lands of Namibia. She was only a child born on that day in that place, 12 miles where the largest metal meteorite on Earth is found. How are you doing today, Marie-Ora de Villiers?
Hi, Jesse. I'm doing great, and thank you for that intro. Lovely to be on your show. I've been following your work for a while, and it's amazing what comes out and what links you're making. And thank you, because this is something turning into a planetary-wide thing. By including me, we've now got another hemisphere and another world. And
yes,
that's what we want to do.
Exactly. So welcome again. So why don't you start off with telling us about yourself, telling us about your journey, telling us about, the part of the world you grew up in, what part of the world maybe you're in now, anything about your background, education, history, what you know about the world that you want to share with us today, especially if anybody's hearing you here for the first time.
Absolutely. Okay, so I was born in a strange place. It's actually pronounced Namibia, and it's after the Namib Desert. And the Namib Desert is the oldest desert on this earth. It actually survived the ice ages intact. So if you go to it, it's largely desolate and remote. It's an incredible country. This is the home of the Skeleton Coast, where when ships used to go on the old trade routes, they would go around Africa to go to the spice trade on the other side. So if you think of America and then around Africa and so on, Namibia is the country that's down on the side of the Atlantic. And from the Antarctic, the freezing water comes up. It's with water, and we have a very turbulent coastline called the Skeleton Coast. And it's an absolutely eerie place. If you've ever seen photos of it, they're just massive shipwrecks, kind of a testament to our position on this earth if nature exercises her will. So it was a stark and remote place, and what's interesting about it is it doesn't appear welcoming when you see it. But my grandfather, coming from Germany, he took one look at it and he called it home. And so I was always rather upset that we didn't go back to Germany. I thought we were Germans, and why did he give up his German ancestry and so on? And then it took me a while to understand, I was born in this place for a reason. So going back, yes, I was born in a very tiny town. It's very close to a border, and that was embroiled in another war. And this is quite important because war is a theme that goes throughout my life. I've actually studied it. I've got a BA. I studied 8 languages in my BA, and then a law degree. And then I went on to a PhD in war, which I didn't complete because I went a little bit rogue. I started to speak to soldiers as opposed to journalists. And that was very revealing when you start to get, and I was interested, what is going on in your head when when you go into these areas and you do these things. And so I went in first with a very judgmental approach, and then I realized, shut up, you don't know anything. Keep quiet and listen and learn. So instead of judging them, I started to go, well, what was it like for you? Why did you go there? How, what do you feel like in reflection? And then I started to learn about the human psyche, and we have this tremendous well of darkness in us. And I had to kind of look at myself and say, I used to say I would never do that, but I'm better than that. And then let's push that back and put you in a position where you are not, you don't have the choice anymore. and then a very different reality with sort of these people who I'd always considered the scourge of the earth have become my greatest teachers in a way. So it was a very odd thing where I started to speak to very serious, people who have committed torture and things like that, and I had to do it with a very neutral space around me, never judgmental and never personal, so that I could never taint the sort of supply chain and distort what I was hearing.
Like a real journalist, you want to hear it objectively instead of kind of, judgmentally or picking sides.
Exactly. And without judgment. And when the judgment part of me fell away, because I went in with, I'm going to get these people. They're responsible for everything. It's them. And then when I had to go, maybe it's not them. Maybe they're just the final action that has started back in suburbia, maybe with me, you, with any of us. Did we inadvertently all create this together?
Just pawns.
And so, yes, so from that very remote area, what is interesting about it is there was no TV and there was no radio. And I think that's quite important because these frequencies are around us, whether we are aware of them or not, whether we want them or not. And so that isolated childhood with no TV, because there wasn't any TV in the country. That's why we had no TV. It wasn't like, you've got the local radios. There wasn't any radio and there wasn't any TV. It didn't exist. And then we were so remote. We were even more remote. Like some people could get the radio from South Africa. We couldn't get anything. A movie was every month they would go and put up one of those big clunky projectors in the next town along, and then would break halfway through and they'd be sitting taping the reels together. And so it was literally a different world. And I was a strange child and I was very obsessed with science and stars and things like that. And then, of course, it was close. The farm was where the Hoba Meteorite is. And here's a piece of the Hoba Meteorite. And the story about this is it's about they estimate between 200 million and 400 million years old. Could be a range from there. It had to come from a supernova explosion because that's the only way you get metals. And this is an attack site, which is nickel and iron, very high levels of nickel and iron. I don't know if you can see so well. The patina is the side that would be weathered, and then the shinier side, I've got it the wrong way. The shinier side would be where it was cut. The samples would be welded off. And it was untouched until then. It landed on the earth about 80,000 years ago. And it was just in the field and undiscovered and unknown. And then obviously people became interested in it. How did 60 tons survive intact? Because most things come through the atmosphere and friction absolutely dismantles them. There's nothing left. So that's why you don't really get such massive meteors on Earth, because our atmosphere tends to burn them all up. So this one is an anomaly. The second thing about it is 60 tons is the largest one. It should have left a massive impact crater, like the type of impact crater that might have caused Atlantis. But strangely, it didn't. It skipped along, and then there's no impact crater.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's very anomalous. There's no impact crater. It was just in the little hole where it found itself.
That's fascinating.
It really is when you start to think about it's unusual. It should never, it's an anomaly. It shouldn't have worked like that. So something strange happened. And then we had from the Max Planck Institute in Germany, they sent out scientists to come and take samples. And they had to weld them off. I was there with my father because I was always interested in this type of thing. And of course, you cannot look at the welding sparks. And of course, I looked up and there was definitely something that happened. There was definitely something that happened. And it was very hard. It was a very complex download that I got. and then trying to go back and kind of decipher it has been my life's journey.
So is it still there? Like the
Oh
big
yes,
portion
oh my
of it,
goodness.
they've only taken little pieces of it off?
Yeah, they only took a few samples. This one will go back to the mother meteor. Oh no, it's 60 tons. It's over there. Unfortunately, they've made it into a bit of a gaudy monument now. Hi, Belinda. They've kind of they tried to make it more touristy, and they destroyed a lot of the magic of it. I can't go back and look at it in its present state because already I feel it was slightly defiled when pieces were removed, and local people, shaman type of people, felt that it was wrong to have taken from this space rock. But you know, all step in where angels fear to tread, and so they did, and that is where I saw something very anomalous, and then I knew that there were all these worlds, and I had to try and pretend to be just part of this world that I could see, so that I could not sound crazy.
So does it have a lot of cosmic energy, you think? And do you think now that they've made it into such a tourist attraction that it's taking away from that energy? Everybody's getting some of that energy that's coming from it?
I think they definitely diluted the energy. I'm not sure that the energy went to people. I think it's more, if you think about an energetic pattern, and then a lot of interference, and then it totally disrupts it, and then it might even dilute it so that it no longer has the message it used to have. And I don't know if you have ever come across, there was a writer, biologist, zoologist, adventurer, explorer called Lyle Watson. And he went to many sacred places. And he talked about this situation where when it becomes a tourist destination and everybody starts backpacking and coming over, the energy of the place disintegrates and it starts to break up. And then you actually lose that, and it just goes. And he talked about Uhuru in Australia, and and then they climb up mountains, and it sort of becomes littered with bodies and, you know, rubbish and things like that. And it's just not the same as it was.
No longer sacred.
Exactly the word. Yes, desecration comes to mind. And maybe it wasn't intentional, but it was desecration in the end.
Well, it seems like, you know, the humans here, they have no regard for sacred, for traditions. It seems like, you know, we're ravaging the earth. We're, you know, not in balance. We're not living in harmony. It feels, you know, stuff that's happening. Like, I just wanted to send out some prayers to my province. They're burning up the province right now. All the chemicals they're spraying, you know, it's some people believe that some of these fires were started. You know, my girlfriend in Edmonton, she had a hard time even sleeping last night because there's so much smoke in the towns, and like, you know, so it's quite devastating what's happening. And some people say that they're, you know, the RCMP are going from farm to farm with locksmiths and taking guns from the farmers. And so this may be a step of tyranny where they don't want people to have guns to be able to defend themselves from a tyrannical government.
You know, you might remember that for a while I had a sort of a vision that this was coming. And then, because there's a difference between a vision and a delusion, I have to work very hard when I see this type of thing in the future. And what I saw was an extremely oppressive government coming in, a government where we were disempowered, where we were locked backwards and literally almost subsumed into 2D figures on a screen. And I'll tell you why I say 2D, because our existence, when you're pushed back into your home and you're not allowed free travel, and then your guns are taken from you, and all the rest, you eventually only become an entry on a website. We don't use paper anymore. There are no records. So what is left of us that if they push us all away and they take away our protection and they force us into areas and they burn our crops and our trees, and then what is left of us? Because there won't even be paper notes to say, well, they were here. It's just all going to be a digital, record, and then that is no record at all, and that frightened me. The thought of World War III frightened me. I am very concerned about a World War III situation. The world leaders are very combative at the moment, and nobody seems to be backing down. And what's happening, the fires in your home province and the taking away guns, these are things that governments allow themselves to do when they're at war with another nation. They look there, we're defending over there, but meantime we are locking you up. Problem, reaction, solution. The Patriot Act, you remember how the Patriot Act came into being? 911, there's a disaster, oh my goodness. And then next thing you know, your freedoms are being taken away. So a prayer, definitely. I'm very, very concerned that you say they're removing firearms.
Me too. I just actually I heard that. So when we had the floods here, I believe 2013, and there was also a town that was totally flooded. They went in there, they were taking all the guns. They call it so the looters don't get them, but I don't think there is any justification for any government official or police agency to ever enter anyone's sovereign home, and that's their own domicile, protected by their sovereign rights, and that's trampling on that. And if you're going to trample on the sovereign rights of the individual, what else are you going to do to them?
100%. And then when it comes to our sovereign rights, we have to ask ourselves, because I absolutely believe in the principle of sovereignty, as you know, being a sovereign one where you're answerable only to your own soul and you do not give away your power to another entity. And what concerns me about the world we're living in is how much of our power have we inadvertently given up? How much of our sovereignty did we inadvertently just squander because we didn't notice and didn't think it was important? And we stopped this incredible, we all wanted to be one and embrace the world, and then somewhere we lost our identity. And when you lose your identity, then it's that much easier to come in and push back on your freedoms and curtail you and push you back into a sort of a smaller and smaller pigeonhole. And so asserting our sovereignty, if we have inadvertently given up part of our sovereignty, then we have to, as humanity, start to assert it again. And the question then is, how do you do this? And what came to me was, you must separate the lies from truth. And very interesting, I actually watched Oliver Stone, the director. He was on a podcast and he was talking about how in the Western world so many lies are spoken. And he said eventually you are a part of the lies, and you don't think you can really do anything about them, because it would just take forever. You would have to sit and argue every single point around you. And so from my perspective, to be a sovereign soul, you have to find your way back to, do you know right from wrong and truth from lies? And that is not a patronizing question, because when I was interviewing the soldiers, I thought I knew right from wrong and truth from lies. And then I found out I didn't know very much at all. And that there was this whole other universe of situations which I just never occurred to me, because I'd never been put into that situation. And then, so the importance of stressing truth. And then, can we find objective truth? And my view is absolutely. I have this glass, and you see this glass is this hole and it's got water in it, and I drop it, and then it's broken. Objectively and subjectively, we can say it was whole, and now it's broken. That's objective truth. So it's ridiculous to say we don't have objective truth. And it's just all perception. No, the glass is going to be broken for everybody. If that makes any sense.
100%.
Yeah. So, regarding the situation in your areas, is there any type of support group that people have banded together and made in case of?
Well, I'm not sure. So we've got a group called the constitutionalconventions.ca. They have this website that they talk all about what's going on, talk about the rights. So they've been doing a lot of things behind the scenes, banding people together to try to create an alternate system towards, what we're living, the tyrannical system that we're living in. But see, the people that kind of spearhead this is living in the lands that they're burning up right now and having to take, I'm not sure. I had a phone call from them on Sunday, from a different number. I called back and then because they said they wanted to talk to me about what was going on, and they were saying that, so what he said in his message was that if you're a landowner and you leave your land, then insurance isn't going to cover the cost of anything damage that happens to your land. But if you stay in your land, then you could possibly perish in the fires, but you'll be covered. So that's like a catch-22. What do you do? Do I leave my land, or do I, stay and then try to defend my land? And if you end up dying, your family or whoever, your insurance would cover your land because there was someone there to protect it. Or so you send everybody out except for the man, stays back. Another way they're trying to call the herd, call the men, because this has been a big target on, the men. Because, who's to defend themselves against the tyranny? The strong, the males, that's why they've emasculated men. That's why, they've changed things. You have men wanting to be women, and then women are standing up and having to take the role. So more women are now standing up to that tyranny, but we're having a really misbalance of things. And it's been a big target on the strong, on the men. And this has been going on for hundreds, if not thousands of years. But now with all the technology, the chemicals, the poisoning, they've ramped it up and things have become really, really twisted.
Absolutely. We have to speak delicately, I understand this. But the attack on masculinity and also the attack on women as maternal and having a role that it is not insignificant if you are a mother. Oh my goodness, just awful to be happening. That is crazy. It's crazy that this is happening in countries that I grew up thinking were beacons of freedom. So when I was growing up, like Canada, the USA, the UK, things that happened where I lived couldn't possibly happen there. It was, these places have got freedom and they've got law. And so it's kind of scary when you see the places you always thought you could run to.
Well, everyone thought of America as the pillar of strength, and to fight against this tyranny, not realizing the Americans being controlled by the same puppet masters, and they're the ones who were and are continuing to infiltrate all the other countries, so that way their tyranny spreads everywhere in the guise that it's democracy. But it's really, it's tyranny. It's full-blown tyranny, installing puppet governments, using taxpayer money to, further their agendas, opposed to trying to free and to help people, because they can't even help their own people. There's poverty, there's disease, there's sickness, everything is in all these countries, but yet they think they can liberate other countries and then even other planets like Mars. And here, let's spend all this money trying to liberate other colonies on other planets when we have such a really broken system here. Maybe we should fix the system here first before we think about trying to go somewhere else.
Well, 100%. Amen to everything that you've said. Um, I think it started probably when the attack on women started, and I would say the attack on women started with feminism. Feminism was, well, we know this was a terrible, it was a disaster. The idea that a woman has no value as a mother and in the home is absurd. To be mentoring the next generation, yeah, this is crazy against the parents. I've been watching what's going on in Western countries, as I'll call them, and suddenly child protection services can come in over the parents, and they can just take away your children. You don't even have the right to say to your child, well, think twice about, you maybe don't want to go and take those hormones, because it might actually destroy your body, and then you might change your mind, and you're not allowed to say this. And that is crazy. So what I'm wondering is, where did people in Western countries start to give up their rights to reality? There's so many genders, and this is how things are.
It's the chemical imbalance. It's the chemical attack. They put estrogen in all of the cans. So, not only men and women. So women have an overload of estrogen as well as men now. And so that's, I think, one of the biggest reasons how they could start to manipulate people by imbalancing them chemically and then feeding them drugs, because now you're in balance. Now you need more drugs to try to imbalance. So I believe the pharmakeia, the pharmaceutical industry, the black magic sorcerers, I think they've played a big part in, the imbalance of the human psyche, the brain, which now it's much easier to manipulate them, because if your defenses are down, if you're weakened, then they can easily, come and, lead the way through either the subliminal messaging or just outright full out tyranny that we're starting to see, here, especially in this last 3 years.
That makes very real sense. That's the first time I've actually had a definite answer on that, because yes, if the hormones are antenna and emotions, and so if you disrupt those, and then your ability to perceive things rationally, maybe, the parental rights, we should not be ever. It is incomprehensible to me that it ever became in question that we did not have parental rights over our children, and that women did not have the right to be who they were, and that Joe Bloggs was not allowed to put on a dress and then go into the women's change room or run at track events or play hockey with them, because it was fairly obvious it's not a good idea. It's obvious. It's so obvious that it's scary that was eroded. And so when it comes to sovereignty, how do we get there? And then you said something about the dark sorceress, and I want to take this back to the coronation of King Charles III, because the idea of sorcery and black magic, I've actually researched it quite in depth. And I wondered, Jesse, what do you know about John Dee?
Rockefeller?
John Dee. Because this is crazy. I think it's been kept deliberately away from people, this information. And when I go further into it, you will perhaps understand why I'm making a link between the coronation and crown countries. Because in a crown country, you don't own your land. The crown does, ultimately. So we already got an anomaly on ownership and the right to bear arms. And if you look at King Charles's coronation, there was something like 4,000 armed forces to protect him. 4,000. I see. It's not like they haven't got better things to do. Now, John Dee, it's the craziest thing. It goes back to the reign of Elizabeth I. And it sounds like it doesn't have any reference, and with Charles and so on, but I put it to you that this is everything that is going on, perhaps emanated from John Dee. John Dee was the occultist and astrologer to Queen Elizabeth I. Queen Elizabeth I was not actually the legal heir to the throne. It should have gone to the next royal house. Instead, Henry VIII, he was married to Catherine of Aragon, and you remember he's the one that killed all the wives and chopped their heads and pushed them away. Not his first wife, though, who was the Catholic. And then he broke with the church. This is crazy important because the whole coronation ceremony is a religious ceremony. And there was a message being sent to the entire world. Yeah, you have to fight for your freedoms and you have to fight for your sovereignty to return. But Charles has been very much at the forefront of the New World Order. He has not gone in on a traditional ticket. Everything has broken with tradition. So we now have a very strange event because a coronation of a king, which doesn't sound very relevant to everybody else. You just think, oh, it's got nothing to do with me. But the signs and the symbols of ownership and dominion over what you think of as your own sovereign territory are massive. So in this ceremony, he's given a scepter to rule. He's literally given, it looks like a round globe of gold, and it looks like an ornament until you think about it. He's got the whole world in his hand. He has been given rulership of the whole world. This is particular to the British monarch. There aren't any other monarchs that have this ceremony exactly. This coronation ceremony is actually taken straight out of the Bible. And this is where we go on to dark sorcery, because if England and Britain was a separate country, he's rumored to be the Antichrist. So this is where I want to go into what was that coronation ceremony really. You're not supposed to allow divorced people on the throne. And just a rule to keep the sanctity of the whole thing intact. Henry VIII was not divorced in his own mind. He believed his marriage had been annulled. The difference between divorce and annul is truth and lies. Truth and lies. So now we've got two divorcees on the throne, and then they are crowned in a ceremony that goes back thousands of years to the crowning of King Solomon in Israel. And that is crazy. But when you look at the British coronation, it actually follows the biblical steps of the coronation of Solomon. And when you get to the part where it's long live the king, well, that's long live King Solomon, the king of Israel. Back to John Dee. John Dee assured the empire, and he wrote books about how he did this. He said he summoned up what beings he called macrobes. Macrobes, M-A-C-R-O-B-S, because that sounded crazy when I first heard it. Macrobes. And then he wrote extensive books about how everyone should be placed and how this ritual should happen. And he did this to secure the British Empire. It wasn't a random thing. He had a very clear goal. So sorcery, politics, war were all in his thinking, and how dominion was going to be obtained over the whole globe by this little island of Britain, which couldn't do it by itself. And so then you go and you look for perhaps a dark entities to assist you. If that is what happened, if that was where a loop was created on Earth, where we had darkness coming through, invited, ritually enforced on the masses, in very strange ways, this masking was just so crazy. Hi from Calgary. Hi, Calgary.
That's my city. She's in my city. That's a good friend of ours, Linda.
Hi, Linda. Nice to meet you. Macrobes. Yeah, Kimberly, exactly. Macrobes. That's exactly what my response was. What the hell is a macrobe? And then when you actually go and you read through the book, you realize he means demons. He literally, Tartarian energy. That is very, very, yeah. Oh, you guys say. That is very interesting. Yeah, macrobes means demons. And there's a price to be paid when you enter into a bargain with a demon for gain in this realm. Well, we know there's always going to be a time limit, and then they're going to come to collect. My concern is what John Dee wrought with Queen Elizabeth I, which was anomaly in historical tradition. Not the legal daughter of the king. Technically, the king's wife's maid's daughter was put on the throne of the United Kingdom. How's it in Sussex? It's so beautiful over there. Going into spring. Scotland! That's fantastic. I'm going to actually, regarding King Solomon, I'm going to be referring to a friend who is from Scotland, David Ritchie, and he did incredible work about the British Israelite belief, which you don't even know this exists. And this is what concerns me. How far did they spew all this information out of the public mind? John Dee is so powerful that when I first heard about him, I actually bought a book about John Dee and his magic, and I arranged for it to be shipped to a Freemason in America because it wouldn't make it to my country. And I said to him, I will impose no more on you than I just want you to, when you receive the book, take photographs, and then would you flip through a few pages and photograph. I want to know if you guys have access to this information because it's so mind-blowing. He did what? He secured the future of the empire by summoning up macrobes, and nobody knows about this. And he was the queen's astrologer and occultist.
Wow.
And so
that's pretty fascinating. So my question is that, do they make these deals with the demons, or are they the demons and people are making deals with them? It's hard to differentiate because, it seems with what the actions that they're doing seems very dark and diabolical in itself.
That's a good question. Is when does somebody become a demon themselves? When does it become? When are they no longer demons? And they have sort of surrendered the dark side of their soul almost.
Yeah, no longer have their divinity. So they lose their divinity and take it into they take themselves into a dark place. And that's kind of my question that I have because, the Lucifer effect, because, I don't see these dark energies. I look at all the people around, they're very maybe confused, divided. Most people, 99% of people I've ever met are pure in heart, just maybe confused, maybe a little bit into the drugs. They have their chemical imbalances, but they're good people. Babies are born good. So when do they become dark? Is that something that, is learned? Are they possessed, or, are the demons from another realm coming here? Or do you become, through your actions, these dark occulted demons?
Well, back to sovereignty, because when you start to interact with a demon, you have to want something from them. Would that make sense to you, that you actually want something from the demon, that there is something beneficial that you perceive? You are going, hi there, Zuid-Africa in the house.
We have a very international audience, so it's amazing to see all the people from all the different places on Earth. It's really beautiful.
It really is. That I love the idea of this planetary, everybody connecting up like a grid on a network. If we could all just start to resonate with each other and connect up and just share this energy and over the globe, not just pulled into tiny pockets of areas. Are the Orbis people seeing more microbes, macrobes? It's the craziest word.
I think she may have meant macrobes, but it may have just.
Joburg. Hi, Jane, Bruno, me too. Joburg, Josie in the house. Uniting together. Yeah. John Dee. So what started with Queen Elizabeth I was a very strange episode, because remember, the British Empire then goes on to conquer every single part of the world. The sun never sets on the British Empire. And I think from the United States, you probably don't get this as much. This concept that this tiny little island nation went out and conquered the entire world. And then you think they couldn't have done it by themselves. I mean, those crown jewels, friends from Johannesburg know where that came from. they basically purloined it out of South Africa. And then the gold and all of that, it's not native to the United Kingdom. It's all taken from all over the world, the jewels, everything. So my hypothesis is there were very dark deals struck to ensure that Elizabeth I started a new era. Hi! I didn't see your Twitter comments, Danny. It's so wonderful to see you here. Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
So I just wanted to make a quick... Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Danny knows so many fascinating things. He's a very interesting guy.
So I just wanted to say, so right now we're live on 2 different Facebook pages. We're live on LinkedIn. We're live on YouTube. We're live on Twitch. We're live on Twitter, and we're live on Rumble. If anybody's commenting on Rumble or on Twitter, we don't see those comments pop up. So he was just saying, did you see my Twitter comments? So we didn't see any of, we can see them later on once I go in. For some reason, Twitter comments don't come up onto this stream. So thanks for coming here to the Facebook stream where now your comments can pop up and, you know, can be a little bit more involved in the conversation. So anything on Facebook, anything on LinkedIn, and anything on YouTube and anything on Twitch, the comments do pop up. But for some reason, Rumble and Twitter, those comments are just specific to the people that are watching in those platforms.
In other words, Danny, please comment away. Comment away so we can see what you've got to say, because I'd be very interested to hear your thoughts on this. So we've got an empire that was created from a very tiny nation. Was it created because it managed to make deals with demons? It's a very big question. And you have to ask it because when you go in and you look at what happened after Queen Elizabeth I comes to the throne, again, illicit empire, back to the idea of lies. An empire of lies starts. You're saying that Queen Elizabeth I is the rightful heir to this throne. And let us just, you see where I'm going with this. And you're saying she has a right to be there. And I'm saying, hold on, she's the king's wife's maid's daughter. Technically, Anne Boleyn was the maid to Queen Catherine of Aragon. So is that really what you refer to as a legitimate heir to the throne? Remember, she is one of the longest lived monarchs in history. You have these incredible long duration female monarchs of all things. Queen Elizabeth I, Queen Victoria, Queen Elizabeth II. And you have this mighty empire that starts and it takes over the world. Because you're in Canada, but you're a crown country. So Charles, being crowned, he's been crowned as your king. And that's, you're not given an option on this. It's not like, hi, JC, would you like us to think about, fires and taking away your gun rights while we marching toy soldiers up and down and putting very expensive items on this man's head? What are we doing with this? What are we symbolizing?
I just wanted to say that some people believe that the fires were started on the coronation as an actual, how do you say, not a gift, but some kind like some kind of ceremony to, usher in the new king or whatever, that they actually did this as a ritual, like a ritual, and they set these things on purpose. So whether that's true or not, I don't know, but it seems very suspicious because this has never really happened in our province, and it just melted the snow. So everything should be really moist, right? The snow had just we're in May, right? So this started at the beginning when April, everything was a couple weeks before, the snow was just melting. How could everything just incinerate? And so
That's
this is
crazy.
very strange. And then, they want to try to blame this on climate change, but a big portion of it is what they're spraying. They're spraying this stuff which is enabling things to incinerate. Some people believe there's aluminum oxide, which makes fires burn hotter and faster. And that's how we've been having year after year more and more of these fires, because there's more and more planes spraying this stuff throughout the skies.
That I wish I could say, oh no, that's not possible, because it would be so much easier to be able to say that.
I wish I was crazy. I wish none of this was real. I wish everything was just golden, and there was fairies all around, and we're living in utopia. But unfortunately, I can't, because I've learned and studied this stuff for too long, and I believe there's a lot more at play than most people. Not our audience. We've been informing. We've got really good people, but in the general, you try to talk to family members and try to tell them about these things, and they don't want to hear it, because it's they have that stare, they have that spell. They're under this spell that everything is just rosy and utopic, we're better than ever, and not seeing the actual evil that has been able to flourish on this earth.
And that not seeing, I am concerned that not seeing is part of a process of giving up the sovereignty of your own soul, and literally giving over your own sovereign soul that we might have had to live many lifetimes to create. Hi there, David. How long did it take us to get to this point? Well, here we are talking around the world to each other, and yet we are in more chaos than ever before. John Dee, the Geisha, is am I saying it correctly? Clavicular Salomonis, yes, grimoire, summoning demons. So it's totally logical. The coronation goes back to King Solomon. It is so precise that chemical trails, but that's crazy. Yeah, because moist, it should not burn in moist circumstances. This whole King Solomon, the Bible, because we're now looking at, remember, this is the United Kingdom. What would King Solomon be doing in the United Kingdom? How did this, that's what Jews are for, DEWs for sure. Canadians wandering tend to believe it's true, because Canada is you are literally crown property. You own nothing in this territory. The crown still owns you and rules you. And you can say, well, they're not my king and not my name, but look at them go. Remember what happened in the Vatican. That should be all very interesting. Now remember, when Henry VIII comes in, he breaks with the Vatican. We suddenly have a Church of England. So Charles is being installed as the head of the Church of England, but he's also being given powers of rulership and ownership against the world. When he gets the sword of mercy and he gets the orb, and then he's anointed, this anointing ceremony, that's crazy. They take oil that they got from Jerusalem and they anoint him with this oil on his hand, the breast. And what does it mean to be anointed? Are we talking about a baptism type of a ritual where there is some sort of a baptism? What is it? An anointing? It is a coming down of the Holy Spirit is the reference. Why is this being done in 2023 against the backdrop of what's going on in your life? Do you see?
Yeah, I'm not sure, because this is some ritual stuff that I think we had Aaron Gotchi yesterday. You were just listening to his interview before we started. He's saying she is correct. This is King Solomon mind magic. I was telling you all about in our podcast last night. They have been making deals with demons because humans let the voices in their heads take them over.
Amazing, Aaron, that is amazing, because this has been a huge issue for me, this whole thing of why was John Dee so hidden. We've got people like David Icke, and all of these people have been they've revealed a great deal about what is supposed to be happening in these sort of dark entity areas. And then when you ask, but where does this link to? I can't believe that nobody ever mentioned John Dee, the guy who wrote numerous books about how to summon up macrobes, again, demons, macro, potato, potato. He wrote the books. He was the occultist and the astrologer to Queen Elizabeth I when the empire is born. This is literally the birth of the British Empire. And then, if this was a Faustian bargain, a deal with darkness, a deal with demons, then we know that there is a time limit on it. There has to be. And my question is that time limit now? What is the purpose of Charles being crowned in the way that he has been crowned now, where he has broken with tradition in several areas, which do not bode well for men and women and sovereignty and traditional values, shall we say. And traditional values tend to reflect on reality, because a traditional mindset cannot exist in a delusional world. Too many hormones is an extinction event. So traditional conservation compared to, and then what started it? What cycle are we in? Where did this cycle? I agree with you, the fear of humans waking up. I think a lot of humans who are advanced souls and who have not anointed in the church. So is that, Kimberly, then a baptism? Could we say that is a baptism?
That's the baptism, but she also said here anointed equals promising something to a demon.
Wow. Let me just tell you the strange parts of the ceremony that people might not pick up on. He sits on King Edward the Confessor's chair, right? And there is a stone underneath. I don't know how much there's a rumor that Charles and Camilla had an inverted dark marriage and a sacrifice situation, and that was to secure their position now. And if you think about their position, if Diana hadn't died and they both divorced, baptism, thank you, Kimberly, then they couldn't be the King and Queen of England and the United Kingdom. They couldn't be. So what deals have been made to ensure that as a divorced, and it's not against divorced people, it's just we talk about tainting the line and keeping it sort of unbroken as opposed to fragmenting it. Now it is totally fragmented. Now we have broken with numerous traditions. In another part, the stone that I'm talking about, it's big, ugly stone. They put it under the coronation. Have you ever seen it, Josie?
No, I don't. I don't give my energy too much to the royals and things. I was in a room when they had the coronation, and I heard them desecrating Yeshua's name a lot, in the name of Yeshua, and all these, they're mixing. They were saying Jesus, but they were using that, to coronate him. But I think it was shameful because of how dark that they are to be using that name in their ceremonies. I didn't really appreciate that. But I don't follow. I've obviously studied some stuff, but I try not to give them too much of my energy.
Let me tell you why I do examine what they're saying very carefully. That's very possible, Danny. Are we living in a complete inversion where we are actually governed by a demonic entity, and we are confused because we don't know truth from reality, we don't know fact from fiction anymore. Diana, Princess of Wales, if you're referring to her, Linda, yes, she died in a car crash in 1997.
Some people have the belief that she's still alive and giving evidence and testimony. Some people believe that a lot of these rulers are actually just clones playing a script, and soon the movie's going to be over and we're all going to be living in utopia with Nasara Jasara. So a lot of people have these thoughts and belief, because there's a lot of content creators, lots of ex-military that are propagating these theories, psychics that believe that this is all happening. And so a lot of people have the belief that, this is all just going to be fixed magically very, very quick. And so that's kind of the thought process behind people questioning if Diana actually did die when, they said that she died.
Gotcha. And suddenly, if I have to often cut off those notifications, don't mind me. Yes, I tend to agree. What the other thing about John Dee, he's the original 007. He creates MI6. He's the original spy. How crazy is that? The Stone of Scone, yes, stolen from the Scots. I think it was Edward II in 1296. And 1296, just interesting because they handed it back to the Scottish in, I think it was 1996. And is this thing the Stone of Destiny? Because they are being invested and crowned with all kinds of symbolism to say that they are the legitimate heirs and monarchs and so on. Are they? If the stone is fake, if the crown is full of stolen jewels, if the anointing is a ritual ripped out, which they actually are not entitled to, then are we sitting and watching this and we say, oh, we're not giving our energy to it? And in the meantime, what we're allowing is the perpetuation of enormous lies. He should be called out. This should be, why are you doing this? This is, whether we look at it or not, it actually creeps out into our lives. Because these things where if they're going door to door with removing guns and things, that would be your own military would be involved. That would be an act of treason against people. Yep, the Opium Wars, absolutely. They stole everything they own. So when he sits over there and we all say, either I'm not interested or, oh, isn't this fantastic? What is lost? What is lost is the monumental lies being crowned. It's fine for a divorcee and her, the mistress of the king's wife to sit on the throne, even after the horrendous death and the incredible in your face to the children and things like that. It's completely normal. And either I'm not going to see it and it's not going to affect me, or I'm going to say, well, that's interesting. But nobody's saying this is a man of the lie. You cannot have these people. Why are they being anointed? Why are they taking such a sacred thing and giving it to themselves in such a public setting? Although the anointing part is done, it's the only part of the ceremony that you don't see. He wears a bridegroom's ring. It's a marriage ceremony of sorts as well. Yeah, to stop feeding the monster. He actually wears a special ring. The monarchs wear a special ring, which is a bridegroom. And there's we will be the servant of the servants to the people. The symbolism has dominated the world. The English language has dominated the world. And so it's not trifling. And maybe if we undo at the symbolic level, right at the top, let us start with the king and let us start to dismantle the lies. He's not entitled to be there. His wife is not entitled to be the queen. She is certainly not entitled to be anointed. Why are they even doing this in front of us and nobody is objecting? Is it because we don't object when they say, Billy Bob is now a girl and he can, go in the track meet and run against your 14-year-old daughter and come first and get an award? Is it because we are so pulled away from the source that the lies just don't matter? So English.
Yeah, and not just that. It's people are afraid. They've made people afraid. They've made people afraid of the governments. They made people afraid on television. What do you do? Movies, television. It's all mind magic programming to make people afraid away from their true power. And if you're living in fear that they're going to come take my house, fear that they're going to put me in jail, fear that they're going to poison me, fear that they're going to kill me. If you're living in being afraid, then you're no longer standing on your own square. You're no longer living in your true power. So they can basically do what they want, and they've been being more and more arrogant about telling us who they are, what they are, because people have been so docile, people have been so poisoned, people have been so put into their place through fear that they don't feel that the people will rise up together against them.
This is very interesting, and I'm going to ask you something. And this goes back to when I spoke to the soldiers, and I went to the darkness for answers. And Aaron Gauci spoke about the dark as being a receiver of the light. He made some fascinating, like we reject darkness and we say we don't want any of that around us. And there would be no light if there was not darkness for it to shine on. It would not show up. And so my question is, how much have people cut themselves off from their path because they didn't go and look? Because then you cut yourself off from truth, and then you cut yourself off from your ability to discern. And my concern is with positivity, it became toxic in the sense that if I don't see it, it doesn't exist. Now, I firmly believe a lot of this power, and of course, this is a reality. You have to co-create your world, and you have to be able to access things. But the other side of it, if I don't look at it, it doesn't exist. If I don't look at it, it continues to perpetuate itself. So if you're living in your house and you hear scurrying in the side, and you go, well, I'm not going to go and look there. It doesn't exist. I'm going to just be positive. And then you end up with like a rat colony or something living in your house.
Or even worse, someone coming into your house or whatever it may be. But I'm probably not the person to ask, because I have quite a differing view from most people. I don't believe that there has to be darkness in order to be light. I don't believe in the yin and the yang. I believe that everything is yin. I believe they created this darkness to justify their shitty behavior and to just allow this darkness. Oh, it must be because there's demons, and oh, there must be because of these things. So I think that they put that into the psyche. I think that we're all light beings, that we're all full of living in love, and that's our true state. So they've manipulated people into believing that darkness, you can't have light without the darkness, in order to justify these evil behaviors that they've done. So I don't agree with the yin and the yang. I don't agree with it. So I'm a little bit different than most people that I've ever talked to.
Well, that's a very valid point. And I think it's a correct point. But what if they could at some point hijack your thinking?
But that's what they have. They've infiltrated people with this darkness, feeling that darkness is justified, where darkness is supposed to be here. We're not allowed to learn our behaviors without this dark. So that's what they've infiltrated people's minds, to make them believe that darkness, should be here. It's just has to be here. You can't have the light with the dark. You can't have love without the hate or the fear. You wouldn't know what true love is. I don't believe, and I don't buy into any of that beliefs. Like, that's something I think was introduced into the programming of the minds to get us to the state where we're at right now.
And to a large extent, I actually do agree with you. I'll tell you where I think it becomes valuable to study the dark is at the point where you have to know your enemy. If these people came in and intruded on loving beings and turned them against each other and made them fearful, what were the steps that were taken? And I would say, well, we know it's rituals and symbols everywhere. But when we cut ourselves off from those symbols, because for me, I look at the coronation, it doesn't affect me negatively. It makes me furious. It gives me righteous anger. Hi there. Please do not change 100%, Linda. That's
I
exactly
agree with you there. We need to study. We need to know what is out there, and we need to know that. I've studied this stuff quite extensively for many parts of my life, so I just choose where I put my energy. I hear about, with the coronations, I don't sit there and watch it and try to figure that stuff out. I know who they are, what they're about, what they represent. Like, I've kind of figured all that, so that's why I don't, do that. But with Aaron's way, he believes that we need to fill all the dark with love in order for them to come back. And what greater achievement or accomplishment could we ever create than turning the dark back into the light, so that way their souls can now be free once again. And that makes a lot of sense to me because, but you have a lot of people that look at these evil acts and the things that they've done, and they want them abolished, and they want them retribution. They want the pitchforks out. They want to have them eradicated off of Earth. But does that fix the problem? Do you not, if you live in that type of mentality, perpetuate what they've done? You become them to get rid of them. As weird as that sounds, you take on that energy to stop the dark, but then you become dark, and then the whole thing just perpetuates itself.
Exactly what you're saying. And what Aaron is saying, that's another way of seeing the darkness as the womb energy, the well, the place in which creation happens. So let me put it to you that we are born and then we die. And there is nothing evil or wrong or twisted about anything in that cycle that we choose to be on this earth. But we look at the death part as a tragedy, and then the birth part as a celebration. So what I'm suggesting, look, we're going to immerse ourselves in darkness, because you do not want to go and immerse yourself in darkness. But pretending the dark doesn't exist is dangerous. This is what I fear, is that when so many people have just gone, yeah, I'm just not going to look there. And this is not a criticism, because it's not a criticism. It's a hypothesis. It's a hypothesis as to why are they now going and removing guns from people in Calgary in Canada, supposedly a free and liberal country where things like this shouldn't happen. How did it get to this point? What steps did we miss along the way? Where, okay, they're building fires to mark the coronation, and they're taking away guns. Taking away guns is taking away sovereignty. And let me put this to you in terms of sovereignty. The king now has the power. He commands the armed forces. The dark serve a purpose, and they will always exist. Jesse, are you familiar with the hidden hand theory?
Yeah, I believe so.
The theory that the dark was sent in to liberate our souls, to force us to grow.
Yeah, see, again, I don't subscribe to that theory, right? Like, again, that goes counter to everything that I, believe in and what I'm in alignment with. I believe, again, this is mind magic. This is manipulation. This is telling people that there has to be dark in order for us to fully grow. And, I get that there is, we all have the power to heal or to harm. But if we were living in an abundance, free, sovereign world, you wouldn't have the darkness. You wouldn't have, you wouldn't have people needing to steal things, because everything would be in abundance. You wouldn't need people to trying to hurt others, because everything would be in harmony and in balance with each other. So yes, we do have that power to heal or to harm, but it's right now snake will prosper type of reality that we're living in. The more darker you are, the more prosperous you can become here. And that's how it's been inverted. And the reality we see now is a manipulated, inverted reality from what we're supposed to be living in. And these are what I believe.
And what you believe is all absolutely true. And then I'm going to say to you, then what steps we have to take is, that is true, yet we have this darkness over us. Did we have any ability to prevent the darkness intruding in our lives to the extent it is now? as a collective, as a planetary civilization of beings, did we somehow give up our sovereignty in a way that makes them think they have more power over us? And then we tricked ourselves, or they tricked us, and then we tricked ourselves. And how do we disengage our sovereign mind and soul from this situation? Because I never went to study darkness because wow, I really think it's cool that you do this. I don't want this to happen. I absolutely think this is wrong, but I want to understand, how did you get to a place where you became a soldier and you thought it was okay to do X, Y, and Z? How did you go? You were a suburban kid, right, in America somewhere, because most soldiers I spoke to were from that kind of area. What made you think, and they thought, well, we're being a hero and we're saving people. So they didn't go in with a dark intention. They went in with the intention to free and to be heroes. And there was this terrible moment that I had so many times when I was speaking to these men, where suddenly they looked at me and they said, I thought I was a hero, but I was on the wrong side, wasn't I? And it's not for me to judge. I didn't want to, I never judged. I just held that space. So they didn't go in thinking they were bad. They didn't go in thinking they were doing evil things. How much would that have changed if they had been perhaps educated to know how darkness insinuates itself into your life? You know, the situation where men and women, we're not even allowed to say, it's fairly obvious biologically how things work. We're not even allowed to say this anymore. It's taboo. But that's crazy. So how did all of us consent to it getting this far? And that's where sovereignty for me, the journey into darkness is not a journey into darkness. It's a journey because I will go in there to pull out my sovereign soul. I will wade into hell and back to pull out my sovereign soul and my right to be myself and not disintegrated into a sort of a collective unconscious. Darkness exists, and it exists, and it is not necessary. I actually agree with what Jessie says over here. It's not necessary that darkness is what is driving us. We can all live in an abundant and happy, but there's something that becomes corrupted, and what I'm worried about is what you were saying, when is it the demons and then they themselves become the demons? So where did the thought process, if they came and they did this to us as humanity, then my question is,
and again, are they the ones who are the demons who are leading in the dark, and they're telling people that it's some external force, demonic force that's, allowing, or, there is these demons out there to take the accountability away from them to justify the stuff, to justify soldiers killing. They teach thou shalt not kill is one of the commandments, yet thou shalt not kill as long as it's not in my army and someone else, we're allowed to go kill them to protect our God, our gold, oil, and drugs. So that's now allowable. But yet you want to say you're a sovereign or you're a Christian nation, but yet you're allowed to go around murdering and bombing and, look what's happening in Yemen and Palestine and all these type of things that are going on. But yet we're a Christian nation and our soldiers are good, but as long as they're not our people. But now, unfortunately, look at the bioweapon. Now they're targeting their own people. So even that has gone out the window because now their own people are a threat to the system or the tyranny. That's how people are now being targeted in every single area on Earth.
Well, I would say when you say that, Jessie, that is actually where you are as a warrior of truth and light. That is where you've said, the darkness has come this far. It will not intrude into my sovereignty any further. So if I have to go and start to pull out my sword of truth, because like a rat that came and set up home in your house, sovereignty is based on knowledge and wisdom. Yes. So if that was a rat or a cockroach that came into your house, you would have dealt with it. But this thinking has seeped into our consciousness in another way. And what I'm suggesting to you is that that is actually a reaction, because you are based in love and light and abundance, that when scarcity and darkness, how we manifest entities, absolutely, Aaron, that we have allowed to control us. This is my concern, is if you don't know the sizzle, if you don't know the symbolism, and it's just allowed to just dwell in your consciousness. For me, I want to say, this is wrong, this thing over here. And I want to know exactly where to draw that line. So if this intrudes into my mind or my life or into my space, then I'm going to pull out a sword and I'm going to, you none shall pass. You cannot bring it into my life. And now they are bringing this into our lives. Now we are all faced with this absolute gibberish and insane thinking, and people around us zombified and stupefied and like enchanted, bewitched, under a spell. Like, you can't reach them, they go glassy-eyed if you try to say anything differently. And then we have to say, well, okay, if we are here, we are great souls. We're great souls who have existed for eons. Perhaps our incarnation had more twists and turns than we anticipated. All I know is I never consented to it when I learned, or now I work differently. Shell Brown Martin.
That's Michelle. So that's just she's also been here on the Missing Link.
Great, how lovely to be. We should make a group, and then Aaron should be. Well, we should make sure. Well, Jesse's got a great show. I think that's where he's joining us all up. And this is a place where, do you see room in that interface where it's starting to, the darkness is intruding into your life? Do you start maybe to see why my hypothesis went, let me go into the darkness and I'm going to get I wanted my truth, my sovereignty intact. Things were affecting me because I grew up in a war zone. Things were affecting me and I didn't know how this came to be. Why did people do this? How did this... I'll tell you a crazy story. When I was young, Namibia is very close to the border of Angola. That's not the prison in the South America. It's a country. And we used to go to Angola all the time. It was beautiful. It was abundant. The people were lovely. Everything was wonderful. And then one day we went for lunch and there was an uprising. I was in a violent uprising that started a civil war. And this beautiful, friendly, hospitable place turned into absolute terror overnight. What happened? That was my question to myself. What happened? Because we were there just like a week or two ago and it was fine. And then total inversion. I remember being very young, we were at a restaurant and then suddenly we were surrounded. It was a very serious situation. People died. It was hectic as a child. And so my question was, how did that come to my doorstep? The doorstep, rather. How did that come to my doorstep? Because it's not part of my identity and what I believe in. And now this horrendous event has intruded on my life. And so then I wanted to understand, and I wanted the darkness to be tamed, at least for me to know it. So if it showed up, I could say, that's you. Yes, the evil was making our lives easy. Tanya, that is so true. It's easier not to question it.
And that's, I was just thinking of a thought that I wanted to say is that, now the free ride is over. Now it's time to pay the Pied Piper. Now is the time where they're reeling in full-blown tyranny. So if we don't stop it, if we don't come together, if we don't, fill this earth with love and, like how Aaron said, to just have so much love for these dark entities, then they're going to make this place into something that, that free ride is no longer going to be a free ride where everybody thinks that everything is just love and light and roses, because, we've seen it this last 3 years, how bad it could be, but that's nothing compared to what, they plan on doing here if they're able to succeed in their plans.
How much are we helping them? How much has humanity bought in? That's my concern. How much of our consent have they obtained? They have to get consent of the masses.
We are the power source. We are the power source that fuels this darkness. And until, like you said, education, because until people are educated what they are, who they are, what it's going to be, if we continue on with them, and people still, the masses still subscribe and still give their energy, still pay their taxes to still, go and allow this to happen, then, who's at fault? Is it the dark for just leading the way and paving the way and allowing the energy to come from the people to allow this to happen? Are they really at fault, or are the people now at fault for allowing this, to happen, throughout the earth?
Sovereignty, the idea of sovereignty, is you are a law unto yourself, and you're answerable to a higher power and not to random, bizarre edicts telling you what you should be and not be, and you can't have guns now, and you have to do this, and you have to accept chemicals. But sovereignty is something that has to be kept sacred. You can't let it go. My concern is that there was a point, and I found myself in this trap, and I thought, how much of my own sovereignty have I given away? Okay, so they say this is normal, and because what am I going to do? Go and argue with every single person I meet and say, whoa, they said this on the news, we cannot allow this, because if this perpetuates itself, they say it again and they say it again, it's going to imprison all of us. That was my sort of vision, was these things that just seemed like annoying at first. When I was at university, it was, there's a crazy feminist, and there's a crazy these people, and there's a crazy those people, and just let them be. And then I came to a point where I thought, yeah, I let evil pass on by. I let things that are completely insane be said in front of me. And I didn't object. I didn't say, I, as a sovereign soul, object to being spoken to as though a lie was resident on this earth and it was normal. Did I normalize lies? Just by, bang. I just want to have a good
by not saying anything. Yeah, by not saying anything is like the same as consenting to it.
In Black's law, that's the legal book of definitions, silence is consent. And that is so when I see a coronation, I want to object to every the T's and C's that they put down there. Oh, this is what we're going to do. And by the way, he's also your religious ruler, and he's also, the head of, he owns everything, and he's also the head of the armed forces. He can send them in to cause havoc in other countries, and on and on. And I go in and I go, okay, first of all, dude, you shouldn't be there. And why isn't everyone saying this? Let's start at the head of the snake, just because it's an easy reference point. You're in Canada, crown property. Hell no. Hell no. Guy with serious personal issues and a wife who died under very suspicious circumstances, and his former mistress is now sitting on his throne purporting to reign over you. Purporting to.
Yeah, good friends with what was his name? Jimmy Savile. Good friends with Jimmy Savile, who was, King Pedo. There's missing children, not just from the Queen, but they've had some weird, suspicious bodies being dug up on the royal lands. There's some person escaping out of a window naked, jumping out of the palace. So these are things that people have seen. And I've been screaming from the rooftops for 20, 30 years now, how we need to kick the monarchy out of Canada. What do we need them here for? Oh, they have no power, no control. Then beat it. No. Then kick them out. If that's what people believe, they don't really have. It's just a figurehead. It's just a title and all that. That's how people have justified me saying this. Then why not remove them? Right? So 100%. this is what, and like I've had people, like I've been in contact with someone who was, showing me the illegitimacy of the throne, and that, he actually believes that he is has the bloodline all the way back to King David, and they've stolen his throne, so he believes he's the rightful heir to this, not Chuck the Turd that is in power right now, right? So so there's a lot of different moving parts to all of this, but a lot of people believe, and they're waking up more and more, how illegitimate this whole monarchy is, and how it is not is like good for humanity in the whole, especially in its current state.
Absolutely. And then I want to just go back to the question of John Dee. You might remember I referred you to something about the basket weavers, which sounds so, for anybody listening, it just sounds so crazy. I found something fascinating out. So I was looking into this John Dee and his macrobes, and he summoned up demons to assure the British, because we're all speaking English, so we are part of the British Empire. What was started there, if that had a glory time and then an end time, we would be at the end time. What's going to happen? Still blind here. What do you believe to be Yasha? I'm so sorry. That is really very hard. I would say to you, the only way to know God and Jesus and all of these things properly is to know truth from lies. If you do not assert, this is truth, this is lies. I actually had an encounter where I meditated and I said, what is the point of my life? And it came to me and it said, you either serve truth, and you'll notice, remove the old king, yeah, just get out the guillotine, get it over. But now they've got Macron. The Rothschilds, interesting story. I stayed at a Rothschild castle, and I've actually got photos in my photo album. Crazy thing, the crazy Madame and so on. So the Rothschilds, no, the Rothschilds are a kind of a knock-on. We've got to go back to, how did this start? If it started with deals of the devil, and we're all speaking English because we're part of the British Empire, and they haven't told us this information has been kept under unbelievable. Because how didn't you know he was the first 007? That's crazy. 007 is like the English James Bond guy.
Actor,
but also based on real spies. They've got MI6. It's a real deal.
yeah.
So he was an occultist and astrologer. He summoned up demons, and he was also the original 007, and he created the interface between nations. And how you spy on them, and how you remember they went and they appointed people to be monarchs, like in Saudi Arabia. That was just the local robber baron family, warlord. And then the British came in, MI6, Lawrence of Arabia. And they said, well, we're going to make you into kings. You secure these rights for us, and we will hail you back in London. And so this stamp was put all around the world. Now, it sounds like we are very powerless, and I put it to you, we're not so powerless. I'm seeing you saying no to this. This is intruded. This is darkness intruding into my light, my thing. And at this point, this is where you pull out. If it's a cockroach, I'm going to get out, real stuff, and I'm not homing cockroaches and rats. And at that point, I'm not abundant and hospitable anymore, because they've now come into my area.
You're sanctity, your home, your private space.
Exactly.
For me, if spiders come into my house or bugs come into my house, I put a cup, I put a plate, I put them in a napkin, I put them outside, I try. But, when it comes to mice, that can make you sick, can, poop all over, can eat, can kind of contaminate things. I put a mouse trap out, and unfortunately they have to go. If it's a spider that looks too fast to catch, that looks kind of, I will squish it, and he's got to go, because I'm protecting my own home, my space in my home. And so that's where, now we've got to figure out where the balance of what's right, because this darkness is coming and infiltrating and coming into our homes. They're coming now into the homes of these farmers, taking their guns. They're coming. So now, how do we deal with them where we don't become them to get rid of them?
Wow, I see exactly what you're saying. And you know what is so amazing about what you're saying is Danny might be able to help me. Albert Camus. Camus. Albert Camus, the philosopher, actually stood in New York, and he did the most incredible speech where he said how not to be a victim or a perpetrator. And he was doing this in reference to World War II. He was saying, how do we get through this dark period of history without being exactly what you're saying? This is an amazing philosophy. It's exactly the point you're making. How, without being a victim or a perpetrator, do we navigate our way through this? Absolutely. Yep. How do we navigate our way? Because the darkness coming into now we're getting told this is normal and that is normal. I would put it to you that these idea pathogens are no different to a dirty mouse pooping all over and bringing diseases into your house. That they are bringing diseases in, they are pooping all over us. It just because it's not in the physical realm doesn't mean it's not as and we should not also be, dang, get out that mousetrap. Because if it's all filtering in, and this is back to the frequency and why I think I was, well, not blessed, because this is quite hard to be in this kind of position, but not having any interference, I could kind of read these things more clearly. I don't have the interference of, as a small child, I was born into radios and TV and movies. It was, and I felt, I don't think I ever felt deprived, but I just feel like, that it was a world I didn't have access to. It was actually a great blessing, and also in many ways, because everything comes with, I think somebody said this, it's all give and take. So you want to be a sovereign soul, but you have to then you can't allow darkness to scurry in. My question is, when we saw the pebbles, did we turn around and go, get thee behind me, Satan? Then get the,
Yeah, so and we also have another problem as well. So now with the emergence of artificial intelligence, with robots, with computers, with drones, with all of these things, they're looking for us to violently try to, rise up against them, so that justifies them for, putting out full out tyranny with all of the technology that they have to eliminate. So, if this was 50 years ago, people would have had a lot more chance of actually doing something in a physical way. So that's why where Aaron comes in, having to transmute this darkness through love in order to do this the proper way. Because, here we have Karen said, good men out there are going to have to do bad things they never thought they would ever have to do in order to stop them. But will that actually stop them now? Are we at the point in history that if enough good men rise up against this darkness to try to stomp out the dark, will they come with all they have ships with these 100,000 drones that can eliminate a whole population in an entire city, by the push of a button? So what kind of things can people now do, to stop them when they have that much power, through technology? How do we stop them? So we've got to figure out the proper way to do this without, us being, targets, for, just being, put to the next dimension.
Exactly what you're saying over there. How do we do this without being targets? And this is where I would say it helps to know a bit how the darkness works. And so where did it creep in? And then to reject it, I think we start with our own personal sovereignty. I think if every single one of us called BS on all the BS that we get fed every single day, all the extensive if you talk about that, which one? If we just called out the lies, and I was watching Oliver Stone, amazing interview, and he said, "Damn, we live in so many lies that they absolutely consume you, and eventually you just give in. It's like the cockroaches took over your home. They took over our the social sphere in which we inhabit, and they are now they have multiplied so much. And then I say, how do we fight this? And I would put it to you that the first thing we do is we get our own house in order, and we go, no, okay, this is going to be hard, but we are going to have to say no to a lot of things. And at that point, symbolic value has got real power, because, oh good, so they put the crown on his head, did they? And they did all so we have got a common model where we can take this down by ourselves. We say, this is unacceptable, this is unacceptable. Not in my name, not because I'm not giving it energy, it's because it's now intruding into my life, and I'm going, no, this is the end of the road for this free ride that has the parasite class that has sort of been coming up. Regarding AI, I'll just say one thing to you. They are one solar flare away from their AI doesn't exist. Because everything depends on satellites and radio waves and frequencies. What happens if they get one major solar burst that cuts out the whole system?
Well, satellites are still in question for me. A lot of things are done through fiber optic cables, but you're right about the EMP. So an electromagnetic blast can take out the grids, can take out all your cars won't work, the computers won't work, their drones won't work. We're going back. So if something, and same thing with a solar flash or a flare, can take us back where now technology is obsolete, and we're going to be back into the ages of, having the strong will survive, and you need to protect your homes, you need to forage your food and go back to those days. So that day and time is, it could be like a snap away from that actually happening, whether they do it, whether it happens from an act of God, or so there is that possibility as well that we have to take into consideration in this whole dynamic of what we're going through right now.
I agree with you totally, and I think that is something that we cut ourselves off from believing it could never happen to us. And in this regard, the sinking of Atlantis, I don't know how much. Yeah, they can't do it all without using your smartphones. Indeed. And then what if the whole system goes down? Then it's all redundant, exactly as Jessie said. Exactly what you said. Then it's going to be who can forage your food, who can get water, who can filter water. And I know you sell water filtration. I want to say that is such an important thing. I just want to say that is so important, that people could know how to filter their own war. We are more powerful together, Mylene. I believe if sovereign souls unite and we start saying, okay, we're in a war with lies. It is a lie that they can come in and take your guns and steal your property and render you, just a null, that they can just move around. That is a lie. Using that legal name, you're breaking the 10 commandments. I'm not sure I understand that. Perhaps Jessie can explain.
So that way from our YouTube channel says the legal name we think is ours is registered in a crown property. By using it, you're giving your consent, not something I would do. And then said, but using the legal name, you are breaking all 10 commandments. So by giving your power by the birth name, so my name on the screen is not my birth name. So, I don't use my birth name. But, so again, I think that's what that way is saying, is that maybe people should start, stop using what their legal fictitious name is, because, that's another maybe step for us reclaiming our sovereignty, is not being a part of that legal name where now they have their legalese in order for them to, use their bylaws and statutes and all this stuff that goes against what our natural law state, should be.
Yes. And when this starts to go against our natural law, then do we not have to defend ourselves? Let us not say that we are aggressors. We are our own worst enemies. This is what I know. It's terrible, Caitlin. It's absolutely terrible. But perhaps we take it down to a more fundamental level, as opposed to things like, what if we just say zero tolerance to lies? Like, you're not going to say that in front of me. Do you accept? No. No. But I say King Charles is a perfect place for a whole group of people from around the world to say no to these structures of power once and for all, and to understand them and say, okay, this is how you have insidiously tapped into my life. What may we be in? We may be in an era that was started with demon worship, the British Empire. If we are in that era, if this is what happened, they literally summed up demons and this is what happened, then how do we defend ourselves? If this is their time is running out and now they're making a power grab, because that's what it looks like to me. They know their time is short and now they're going absolutely crazy, trying to control everybody. Other countries, everybody must be under control. Everybody must say the same thing. Big Brother is watching you. You must be terrified. If we are in a period of history where the good times, what you said, the free ride ran out, how do we navigate that? Because we are great at ancient souls. We didn't just arrive here out of nowhere. There's a reason why we are speaking.
100%.
There's a reason why you're saying no.
I think food sovereignty is one of the most important things, because if they can't control you through food, if you can feed yourself, if you can take care of yourself, if you can take care of your family, then you're less able to be controlled by them. But if the grocery stores don't have food in them anymore, how are you going to survive? What are you going to do? And if they decide to stop the food supply, the food chain, in 3 days, there'll be no more food left in any of the stores. Then what? So now what happens? So I think one of the best ways that you can become sovereign is to be able to provide your food and take care of your family. Food sovereignty is, I think, one of the most important things moving forward, to be less controlled and to step in your own power, your own square of sovereignty.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. I would just say there's a massive spiritual dimension to all of this. And while we are, it's for control, but while we are saying, let us become independent of food and so on, they can still steamroller in and take your guns and do things like that. So how do we cut off that? There is something I believe we are consenting to. People live in that, yeah. But how do we get to this place where it's okay for them to just come in and turn you into, we shut at the supermarkets? How dare they? How dare they? How did it even enter into our consciousness that an event like this could even happen by our servants, our public servants? Where was the gap where we started to consent to their power? Because somebody mentioned it's easier. That is, I think, where we have to navigate and draw a line and say, okay, so this is where the darkness came in, and it affects my whole life. Not just, damn, I want to be able to eat, I want to be able to find pure water, I want to be able to survive. But are we in this in-between phase where we kind of trapped, where our governments have turned against us?
Two things come to mind for me. So one is when they listed a corporation as a person. So that was one of the biggest things now, because it took all morality out of companies, out of corporations, because now you can have a shell corp owning a shell corp owning a shell corp owning a shell corp. Now that first corporation can basically do anything, can run rampant, can poison people, can destroy the earth, can do anything with no accountability, no face behind it. I think, well, that's one of the biggest travesties now, is, having a corporation as a person. And then the other one is, usury, right? Causing like loans, interest on loans and things like that was supposed to be outlawed. That was supposed to be banned. That was never supposed to be. And now look how many trillions of dollars all of these countries and corporations are indebted to who? For them printing money out of thin air, loaning people money to get paid back this interest that's supposed to be illegal against the people. So those are two things that come to mind where we really took a turn for the worst. And then taxation, taxation was supposed to be, just voluntary to help pay for the war. And now, look, everybody is taxed on every single facet of their life, when they buy, when they die, when they transfer money, when everything. You have to pay for fishing licenses. You have to pay for dog licenses. You have to pay for all these things, which we shouldn't have to pay for. So this is where I think some of the things where we really took a turn for the worse, by allowing them to continue to feed the beast. The machine just keeps feeding and keeps feeding and keeps feeding, while all the people keep suffering and suffering and suffering from this, this beast, this machine, whatever you want to call it, because nobody has said enough is enough.
Exactly. And what you say is very important. You said corporates, taxation, and what was the third thing?
Usury.
Usury, debt. I mean, magic money. They say you owe trillions. Really? Do you owe trillions just because you're just putting fake numbers on an amount and saying that you're entitled to do so because it's interest? It's not interest. It's theft. It's fraud. It is not real. Those numbers don't exist. You're having to pay for. They are stealing something. If you have to pay for something that is yours, your right to have go fishing, have a dog. If you have to pay for it, they've stolen something from you. And this is not extortion. We're literally saying, well, you can't do this anymore unless you pay us. And we're going, okay, just pay them. Pay them the way we believe, out of chaos. But the corporate thing, understand, when I keep going back to the British Empire, this is where the corporate concept is born and disseminated to the world. Was the British Crown, and did they get it from the Romans? I don't know, because the whole thing with company law, exactly what you say, it's the most evil entity. It cannot be sued. It has no moral value. It cannot be judged. You cannot say this is a bad corporate entity. And just even the word corporate entity, it has a very dark. It has no human form, yet it is given immense power. Well, that's a lie. Okay, that's a lie. You can't just go and create a company and then fill in a set of bureaucratic things and pay licenses and so on, and then say, well, this thing has the right to feed on you in a frenzy. Where did that notion enter into consciousness? Back again to John Dee and the securing of the empire, because company law is a very British thing that has been disseminated across the world. The idea that a company has a separate entity and right to exist. And back to the basket weavers, which are just the craziest thing, the basket weavers. Why I point to them is because somebody pointed this out to me, they revived Gog and Magog. Gog and Magog were neutralized in the Bible until under the reign of Queen Elizabeth I. John Dee goes and he makes these deals with macros. At the same time, and this was just mind-blowing information that came to me very recently via a friend of mine, and he pointed out, he said, they revived Gog and Magog. And I said, when did this happen? And first he said, no, I didn't think it was Elizabeth I. And then he came back to me and said, no, it was during the reign. It was when John Dee was communing with the macros. So what is the Guild of Basket Weavers anyway, basket makers? So I went to their website. I went to see, what do you mean? They literally get dressed up in this ceremonial garb, and then they take woven effigies of Gog and Magog, and they burn them every year. What makes them do that? Because they weren't doing that before John Dee was influencing and communing with macros. It was over. It was dead. It was a null. And then this starts up, and a lot of very predatory things start up with the British Empire, with all the glory, because remember, they have to have pomp and ceremony to hide the fact that it's bloodshed and tears, and not just for the other people, for their own sons and daughters that they push into these situations, because the amount of British soldiers and Canadian soldiers and US soldiers that are sacrificed to this cause. And when you see Biden saying our democracy, and he gave that crazy speech in Philadelphia, I actually did a blog post about this. We should have never allowed it. But what if it came in via a demonic ritual, and that secured the British? Because here we are, we're all speaking English. So the British Empire owns us. English is a very, anything about adding gnocchi.
What? I don't know if gnocchi is Italian potato, so I'm not sure how that's relevant, Taffy, but do you know how to respond to that? Because I don't.
I do know that un gnocco, which is the singular of gnocchi, is the plural of dumplings, means a dimwit. So originally, so that might be.
Oh, so she said, how do you spell that last comment? Because the wrong spell checker changed it. So gnocchi's an Italian like dumpling or like pastry.
It's a dumpling. It's made of potatoes, flour, and egg. That's crazy. I'm making pierogies. Delicious. Okay, why can't you just send me some over the screen? Did I say it correctly? It's Anunnaki. I wonder. I wonder because the ceremony, what you're seeing over there is very ancient symbolism. Let's be fair, it did not start with this crazy situation where suddenly a tiny little, I mean, if you get out a map of the globe and you look at how big Britain is, and then you think they conquered Wales, Scotland, Ireland. They literally conquered everybody who lived around. Who are they? There is no English parliament. And I thought, people said, you're a little crazy to be questioning these things. And then I saw a couple of videos recently where people said, what does English even mean? Is there an English identity? What does English language mean? And that's what I've been asking. It's like, this is a muddled up language. This is a language that causes a lot of confusion compared to other languages that I've studied, where it's much more precise what you mean. It's like there was a break in reality. There was some kind of a break in humanity, in our interaction with the cosmos, where a very dark entity came in and corrupted everything. What you say, especially the corporate, is spawned under this time in history. This is where it floods the world. Yes, we're not a corporation, absolutely. Dominion to the earth. But do you see where I'm trying to go with this is, if we can isolate it and we can identify it as an anomaly, I suggest to you that we have some power over it. And I suggest why they have been keeping the secret and covering them with multiple other conspiracy theories, like the Rothschilds. And yeah, I was at one of their castles. 2 or 3 weeks. I went on a school trip. We went to learn French. One of their castles is the Chateau de la Versine. I've got it in my photos. I didn't know at the time. I wish I had known all the gossip, because I looked a lot harder. What it would be like.
I'm like a little like when I go to places, I look for secret doors and I look for all kinds of stuff that I shouldn't be looking for. So that's just the type of person I am.
You, now, if I want to like shake myself at high school, but at the time, I have to tell you, it was bizarre because I was reading about the Rothschild and thinking these are the most, and then one day I was going through my photos and I went, "Whoa, I was there! What up? I met the woman. You know the Baroness who with the satanic dinner party.
Oh, yeah, I to forget her name, but the one that's got those weird necklaces.
Yeah, I met her.
Wow.
Bonjour, madame. Curtsy. I went to a girls' school where you had to curtsy to the headmaster and the teachers, and we were very British, rigid, that type of thing. So it was inculcated into me at boarding school from a young age that, you know, this is how you behave, this is how formalities happen. And so when we went on a school trip to France and we had to go up to see Madame the Baroness at the big house, the little chateau we say is just their little pile for, you know, charity reasons. And I have to tell you, I didn't see anything off there. This is the crazy thing. I was there. There was nothing going on. There were young men and women who were teaching us. Jesse, they never looked at us askew. In fact, I was embarrassed that some of my friends from school were throwing themselves at these young men in a embarrassing way. But they never reacted. They were just like, it was notable. It was notable, and some of the girls I was with, all girls school, boarding school, some of the girls were really ticked off that they weren't getting
any attention.
From what were pretty good looking guys and young and so on. Just nothing. The chateau itself was not, it's one of those that are stripped bare. So it's inside, there's not paintings and things like that. It's just very Spartan. And I actually show you the photograph where that was my dormitory. I was nothing. There's me taking a picture out of the window. And I've got a letter that I actually wrote home. I've got the letter I wrote home. And I said, it's wonderful here. It's beautiful. The food is fantastic. They treat us so nicely. I'm learning so much. And
By
then,
any chance, did any of the girls go missing, you know,
No.
during like, you know, because sometimes it makes me think that when they bring these tours of these girls, they're trying to look to pick out one or two that they want to take and stuff. So
you
that's
would
just
think,
how, and did you, I don't know if you can remember, but did you
Oh,
feel a
very
sense
well.
of darkness? Did you
No.
feel like when you met the Baroness, did you feel a cold that she could have been a reptile? Like, did you feel anything, or was just, you know, everything just kind of normal at those times because you were more naive as well to what, you know, things were maybe at the time? But, you know, just wondering if any of that stands out for you.
This is actually quite important. From a very young age, I have a natural aversion to darkness. So there are places I just literally cannot go into. If that comes at me, I'm extremely, extremely sensitive to it. I won't go digging in any dark things. I will study it from without, but I will never actually dig into, you know, let's try one of those rituals out or something like it. Never. And so I've got a very sharp antenna and a very visceral reaction, and I've always had that. Very serious. But I've got to tell you, and this is what I'm talking about when I'm saying, are we prepared to confront truth and lies? Because there I was going like, oh yeah, it's them, it's them. And then suddenly I come across this photo and this letter that I wrote home, and I read it and I go, did reality just change? Because the answer is no. And those girls, I knew them very well. I was a termly boarder at a school here in Johannesburg, Rodine, and it was the most prestigious school and probably still is to that extent. It was extremely hierarchically British. As
I
say,
think they're maybe less likely to be taken than, you know, someone that's maybe poor, or, you know, that they're not going to have such a stink for, you know, someone making, because if you're coming from a place of people of an upper echelon, there's going to be people that are going to be angry and want to question, you know, why their daughter was missing. So that's just kind of what I thought about.
That's true, although they put a high value on look, the dark does exist, and child sacrifice does exist. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, and I'm not saying the Rothschilds aren't part of it. What I am saying is my personal experience at that chateau, there was nothing going on. I knew those girls very well. I was boarders with them for years. We all knew each other. But there was quite literally nothing going on. And then when we went up to the big house, which is Ferrières, I think it's a huge chateau, and they've now donated it to the French government. Madame was, she was not a beautiful woman. I remember her very clearly. She had a massive pile of pink roses next to her. We all had to go in a row and curtsy and greet her. And she was actually a very gracious woman. This is and here I'm saying, are timelines colliding? I don't know. I'm telling you, this is my personal experience. I was there, and I got the letters, and I got the photos, and my personal experience was she actually had a warmth to her. The person who was unpleasant was her butler. The butler came in. He was so archetypal. He literally came in with a tea on a silver tray like this, and he was looking so far down his nose that I was wondering, how did he actually pour the tea? Because he had to like give a cup, and it was like, we have to give, these peasant schoolgirls, or we have to like entertain. And he was the snooty sort of barrier to it. He was the one who was unpleasant. And he was very starched up, and it very clearly burned into my mind is this butler being, yeah, they don't belong here, we're just going to tolerate them kind of thing. But no, and this is crazy. And we have to make room. If we start to make room, that perhaps reality is not what we think it was. Because I'm not saying it's impossible for what people are saying happens, but I'm also saying there are other sources. And what if the Rothschilds have been papering over the whole John D. Macrobes thing? And what if they've silenced the whole John D. Macrobes thing, and the basket makers reviving Gog and Magog, and the corporate entities, and all these crazy things going out in the reign of Queen Elizabeth? What if they've silenced it because knowledge is power? And if we knew that, and if we could identify, you can know things are wrong, but if you cannot identify what is wrong. So the Rothschilds to me are a red herring. That's disinformation. Because if everybody knows your name, you aren't that powerful.
100%. I try to tell people that, these are just figureheads that are easily given up if needed, to appease, so that the real dark forces that are pulling the strings never have culpability, never have to face the music if at any time they need somebody to appease them so they can continue on ruling from their underwear and their little secret societies, drinking out of skulls or whatever it is. But those are just people that we know, like the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, these names. I've specifically showed people these different names of who they think are ruling the world, the families, and the ones that are actually the Aldobrandinis, the Orsinis, there's a bunch of names that those are the ones that are actually that nobody knows about, but those are the more likely. That's where all the popes come from their bloodlines and things. So you talk about
the black nobility, the Venetian thing, and then the crazy thing, because just in South Africa, we're a very small population, and so there will be a lot of crossover, and you'll meet a lot of people. Those names, I actually know a few of those names, and I actually have a friend who went to a school in Rome with a lot of those specific names. And here is the crazy thing: when you hear the stories from school and so on, they just other people who, yes, this is my concern, and it's what Jesse was saying. Jesse's absolutely right. He said, don't focus on those people. You don't know their names. If they really rule you, and names Aldobrandini and all of that, yes. Is there a different species? How much do we give ourselves up to be a different species if we lose our sovereignty? If we stop saying, I know between wrong and right, and we just accept lies. One nauseating lie after the other. Hi, this is Admiral Rachel Levine. She was born a boy, and then she grew up, and now she hasn't even been in the service of a military, and now she's an admiral. And we all go, yeah, okay, they're crazy, and we don't go, whoa, stop the bus, stop the bus. Did you just use my taxes and the name of my country and all of this, and go and take somebody who's, we have to practice some acceptance that God has put limits on us in this life. Great stuff, Belinda. Love you to be. I hope you do. But why aren't we all going like, whoa, what did you just say there? You just, I mean, they installed this admiral. I don't know if you even know about her. Her, because we don't want to get into trouble. Not a day in service. I see. So was a boy, put in a dress, became a girl. That's fine, because we're letting everything go. And then one day, had never been in the armed forces. And this is kind of something to me as somebody who spoke to soldiers and military who had to really earn their way up.
It should be very insulting.
It's very insulting. And now it's got on a dress, and it's called Admiral, and it's been given medals. Why didn't minds explode? And what you said about the chemicals and the things, which is why I say we've got to go back to very rudimentary. Do we know truth from lies? Are we accepting narratives, or can we see where this is where the rot came in, and this is where we have to start to form a resistance to it? Because if the whole narrative, and I think what you're saying is 100% of the money, disinformation. If we are being peddled lie after lie after lie to keep us from knowing the truth, and then we're also going to be passing on conspiracy theories, which largely are true, but then what if they know that they're largely true and they're disinformation? Back to John Dee, the original 007. What do? Propaganda. This is the function. This whole propaganda institute is now born under the auspices of a guy who summons up macros.
This is exactly the same as what Taffy's saying here about reptilians. So if people think that they're reptilians, that they're some, other race, that they're not human, then it's unwinnable. If they think that they're demons, that we're fighting against forces that are not human, then what can we do? It's unwinnable. So this again is this disinformation, this propaganda, making people believe there's demons and reptiles and all these things to take away accountability that there's people with names and addresses and phone numbers are the ones that are actually doing this to us. But if everybody is focusing on a reptile or a demon or a this or a that, and so then nobody actually focuses on the inner workings and how they have kept control of us through all this disinformation, through this propaganda, through all these make-believe stuff that they get swirling people's heads with, and then they propagate it with movies and Hollywood and all these fantastical ideas of all these other races and beings having the ones that are controlling here. Well, then what can I do? I can't do nothing. So I'll just stay as sheep. I'll just stay asleep and I'll do nothing. And whatever happens, I'll just, be happy dying on my knees instead of actually trying to stop the destruction of humanity, stop the destruction, the poisoning, the onslaught, so maybe we can, stand up and protect for future generations.
Just amen to everything that you said over there. What you said over there is so important, because let us say we have been fed a lot of disinformation, untrue information. That's trillions of hours of research and minds. Now we have put our focus collectively, even if we didn't partake in it. But what if we collectively put trillions of hours into disinformation? in physical form on a meeting with leading Extinction. Swear. What did Danny say over there? He said something about Extinction Rebellion. He had a meeting with their faces, and he said, swear, some of them have sort of. Now, I have to tell you, Danny, I didn't see it at the Rothschild, but I have seen the kind of eyes you're talking about. I have actually seen them, and it's spine chilling. And I'm not going to suggest that they're reptilian or not. I'm going to suggest that there are people that perhaps are born evil. And what are the reasons for that? Well, we don't know everything when we come to this life, do we? Some of it is an adventure and a school. And this is how I got into, let me look at the darkness head on. Because I thought, we will. So do we know when the dark is entering? Where has the darkness come in? Because if they fragmented our reality into millions and millions of conspiracy theories, and hours, trillions of hours of time is being siphoned off and diverted into, it's the Rothschilds, easy fix. And then at the same time, you help us. What are you going to do about the Rothschild personally? So what I say about sovereignty is, oh, okay, what can I do today to disengage myself from this absolute catastrophe? And my decision was, I'm not going to participate in another lie. And when I see something coming up that I'm going to say something, and it's got me into a lot of trouble for the last few years, I got to tell you, Jesse, this is harrowing. I have got so much trouble. And then I have this soul dialogue that I go into, and I go, just let it go, and then it's like, no, you made a vow. You said you're going to serve truth. This is a lie. You are now in a head-on confrontation with a lie, and you're going to put your sword down. So this is a little bit crazy, because this is my own thinking. Is if I serve truth, then I cannot participate in the lies, and it has to start. It's literally, you have to fight your way through every day then. But what if all of us started to do this? Not just saying that's crazy, but saying, is this true? Is it true that there are demonic forces, or did we do it to ourselves? Is there perhaps not room for a kind of a reptilian evil if you think about the hidden hand theory? Because the hidden hand, when I came across that, I did crazy amounts of research into it. And the whole idea is that we have this Yeshua who has created this world, and he has created these humans, and they are there to serve him. And we have a cosmic sort of alliance from outside that goes, but they will never evolve to beyond this world. And they might have not been created perfectly, and they might not be in a perfect world, but we cannot arrest their development. And so we are living in an Eden, and then for our good, like a parent comes in and tells a child you can't have too many sweets or whatever, there's a cut-off point. And it comes in and it says, okay, well, you're not going to shift yourselves into a higher level of ascension unless we incentivize you. You're not going to say, dang, that snake thing in the Garden of Eden is shouldn't be there. So we have to incentivize you to know that shouldn't be there. Know that Eve should never have taken the fruit from it was there. So biblically and archetypally, that is there from the beginning. The story is, there was Adam and Eve, and what the serpent thing. And if they knew what the serpent thing was, would they have made that mistake? And then we go into whole cycles and cycles of history. We've got the reptile, we've got the two humans, we've got the liar, we've got the truth. And thousands of years later, in various forms, in countries, in languages, in traditions, we still can't clear the hurdle of, that's the snake. You must not eat from that tree, because then Adam has to tell Eve what to do. And then we're going to have a big fight about who's Adam and who's Eve nowadays. And so, is it true? Is any of this true? And again, I'm going to tell you, if I take up this glass and I smash it down now, it is objectively true that it was a whole glass and now it's a broken glass. So objective truth exists. But you have to, it's like the dragon is guarding the gold. it's spiritual gold, it's all of these things, but you have to fight it. And I think that's what you're doing. I actually see you very much in a warrior archetype, where you're saying, yeah, this is how it should be. And when this intrudes into my life, no, 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 no. How much can we amplify our collective no's and be scrupulous in our own behavior? Because I know you're extremely good about, you live your purpose and your truth. You don't just, it's very serious to you. So when this type of thing intrudes on you, this is a very, very serious incursion onto your sovereignty. What is being done now is not acceptable. And so how do we start the fight? And I suggest we start the fight with rigorous adherence. Do we know what is true? And do we know what is false? And do we know where this comes from? Where did the mistake start? Because that's me. I'm always like, how did this start? Was it soldiers? Because then I'm going to go and tell them off. I'm going to scold them. I went and I found these soldiers who did these things, and I was like, I'm going to tell you off, and I'm going to tell you from a high horse, you did the wrong thing, and you are the cause of all misery, wars, and poverty and famine. That's just 100% my aim. I was like, I'm going to find these people. I'm going to interrogate them. And I'm going to ask them, why did you do this? And then once I've managed to, this was the whole thinking behind my PhD, was like, I know better. And then I was speaking to him, and I was like, how did you get there? And he said, well, he was 16 and he was a sniper in some foreign country. And I said, yeah, but at 16, how did you? And he said, well, a couple of conversations later, he said, well, I didn't know I'd been born into it. And then it's like, I thought I was a hero. It was just what I was told. I was told I was a hero.
Most things are generational. Most things, if your parents are doctors, you're more likely to be a doctor. If your parents are in the military, more likely you're going to be in the military. My dad was a house painter, or like a commercial painter, and I've done painting throughout my life to make money and stuff. So that's kind of, and then you just take the place and you just think it's right. You don't question. Same thing as with this. You don't question, oh, you got your cute puppy.
Yes, this is my cute. This is Sirius. Luchamo. Say hi, Sirius. This is my cute. Hi there, baby. Don't bite me. This little dragon. He doesn't mind nipping me. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Bite the hand that feeds you.
So that one never got the memo.
No, in fact, none of them got the memo. I ended up with his brother as well. His brother doesn't even get up for treats or anything like that. He just sits and he glares at me. And I feel these eyes boring into my soul. And then by the time I've found him wherever he's hiding in a bed or something like that, he's like, that's right. You've starved me, you cow. Yes, leave me to die of starvation while you just go and speak to your friends or whatever. And then, oh, finally now you came and you give me, and he like looks at, I'm not kidding, I don't have that much money, freshly roast chicken, and he's going, I don't think so. And I'm like, please eat, because if you're not going to eat now, then you can bark and endlessly bother me. I'm not going to get anything done. I was like, no, I don't think so. So I live in servitude. This is one of the palace dogs. Not a palace, that's for sure. But, he has expectations that I should be in service to him and bondage. So, isn't that so? My sweetheart, I just have to do whatever you want. So it's a crazy situation when I feed them, and people who come to my house, like, they say, you're not like that. You like a... And then they find me, and I'm like going, please, sweetheart, yeah, it's fresh roast chicken. Please, have a little bite. It's like, and they find me, like, I'm crawling under the table, and I'm trying to get to Beetlejuice, who's his brother. They were named after the stars, Sirius and Beetlejuice. And Beetlejuice is snapping at me, and they're like, we thought you were like this, and now you're just like this patsy. I mean, you're just like a servant girl. You're like crawling under the table to give the dog his food.
That's
and,
awesome.
Yeah, because I think when I took them on, that was the deal. I think that was the deal, and so I do it.
It's amazing how when you have animals, you have to take care of them
Whether you, and so often I wanted to give up, and I just thought, oh, why am I even doing any of this? And then it's like, oh, okay, because these
How
little
can you
lies.
not with that cute face?
Yes, you could get crazy.
We have a question here from Taffy. She asked it earlier and then she asked kind of again. So, and what does she believe in to be true as far as religion? And then she says, question, or no, here, question, do you believe that there is a God?
I absolutely believe there's God. My earliest experience was a sort of a road to Damascus moment when I was on the farm, and I had a kind of, this is as a very young child, and I didn't speak to anyone about it because what should you say? I had this sense of I can't explain it. It was so all-encompassing, rolling. Everything came over me, and it was past, it washed over, and it said, "You see all of this? I made it all." It's kind of what was echoed in Job, in the book of Job, and it said, "And you are a speck of dust. Know your place." Sylvia Brown, is she the woman who does shadow work? Just
she's the psychic that helps police find people. She's been on all the talk shows. She goes around, so she's apparently some famous psychic. I don't know a lot about her, but I have heard about her.
Taffy, I'll look into her because the whole forensic thing, I actually did a year of forensics at university too. I kind of went, so that's very interesting, and thank you for drawing my attention to it. I do believe in God. I do believe I have to answer for every single thing I do. I take that, and when I say truth and God are synonymous to me. I serve God, I serve truth. I was raised in the Christian tradition, Jesus, and all of that, and that is actually where I am, but for one thing, and that is when I realized God and truth cannot be separate, then things that used to be able to be easily fudged, wow, psychics who remote view for missing people. Linda, I want to tell you a crazy thing. In the late 1990s, when they had those chat groups, I partook in some military experiments. What do you think of beetle juice what does she think of beetle juice that people had to take? Well,
that's the thing that they just taken. I think she's calling it the Beetlejuice.
Oh, okay. So Beetlejuice is actually named after the star, which is spelled slightly different. It's Betelgeuse or some Betelgeuse, something like that. But it has got a reputation. And let me tell you how I got to those names. My previous family of dogs, my boys, they were brothers. They were not long in this world. They were starting to fail. And I said to myself, I'm never going to get animals again. I can't do this. I lost literally my one on the Monday and my mama cat who'd been with me for 23 years on the Friday, and it was just I couldn't. The grief was overwhelming, and I looked up at the sky and I looked at the stars. I always watch the stars, and I said, I'm never getting dogs again unless. No, never say this when you look up at the sky. Here is a heads up. Never ever say this because it's crazy. It's even documented on Facebook. So I look up and I go, unless there will be a litter that comes to me out of the blue. There will be two brothers. One will be bigger, and I had it very specifically. One will be smaller and grumpier. And I looked up at the sun and said, okay, one is going to be called Sirius after that one, and the other one's going to be called Beetlejuice because they like in an alignment in the sky. And it was just purely, okay, my other Miss Bella hadn't quite made it out of this world when somebody knocked on my door and went, there's some property. And I went, hell no, I am not going to look at that. Do not go there. Do not go there. Of course, there I am at an accelerated clip heading for the house. I get there and they're 3 weeks old. He and his brother Beetlejuice were 3 weeks old. And the one is sitting on top of the other one. One is lighter and bigger. One is smaller and darker. I like the little dark one is grumpy, just as I kind of foretold it would be. And then I thought, well, if it's a girl and a boy, I'm out of it. So like We are going to turn them over and see what we've got ourselves here. Again, truth versus lies. You can't lie to yourself. So I turn them around and I go, okay, so we are not going to be sitting in Paris in the spring. We're going to be picking up dog food. That's basically how it happened. It's crazy as that. It was like I had plans to go and travel. I'm going to use my languages. I'm going to go to Carcassonne. I'm going to write a book. And I was derailed by
Puppies.
They filled every single requirement, and I was very specific. Have to be brothers, same litter. I mentioned breeds, that they would not be purebred, that they would need a home. These puppies were born out of the blue. They needed a home. It was so specific. And then, like 4 months later, oh, lovely. I am picking up dog poop again. I said I wouldn't do this because I love animals. I've always been a complete walkover for animals and children. Actually, children do whatever they like with me. My grandmother used to say, "Oh, if you had a child, it'd be the most monstrous child in the world because you just let them do whatever they want." It's like, I don't want to crap their style. I don't want to.
Yeah. It's amazing how the universe just provides like that. Like Angeline, my girlfriend, was telling me about this was years ago. They said that, the kids wanted to have a cat. They wanted to have a cat, and it was always kind of no. It was kind of no. It was kind of no. And the day that they decided, okay, to have a cat, that day some cat scratches on the door or whatever it was, and then all of a sudden that day they decided, the cat just appeared into their lives.
Absolutely. I believe we make arrangements for these souls before they're born and before we're born. So when they came into my life, it wasn't optional. There was some soul contract that I had. And it's not, thank you, Linda. Yeah, it is, because that's shoveling it into the front end and picking it up from the back end is sort of, if you think about how many hours of my life have been spent in exactly that endeavor. Yeah. And do I feel less for it? No. I feel like it might not look like much to anybody else, but I feel like this was a soul agreement.
Love is love. Love is love, and animals, that type of love, you can't, and that's for me. When my first dog passed on, I didn't really want to have a dog because it was really sad for me. And then, I showed up at the guy's house. He said, "You got to take this dog or take him to the pound." And next thing you know, and now I have Hawk with me, and it really helped me and changed my life for the better, got me out, and because of my bad hips, I would stay inside a lot, work on my phone, do a lot of the social media, learning, teaching, all this kind of stuff. So it was just easy for me to do what I had to do and just, not go out of my house much. But now I'm out in the mountains, going for walks, going out and about and here and there and everywhere. So, he's really done wonders for me, and I was not he wasn't even thinking about having a dog. And next thing you know, now got a new best friend.
You've got a new best friend and a new lease on life, a new outlook. So if we are hostage to demons, I say to you that we have also got very great light souls that come in and change our lives. And maybe we aren't looking low enough for the miracles, because you want a great big shiny miracle. Maybe the miracle is your dog came into your life and suddenly you were going for walks and things change. And is that not miraculous? These are incredible beings. That's him drinking water now, laughing sound there. These incredible beings who go through hardship of their own to get to us oftentimes, and have to, go into life and illness and all of these things to be with us. They come and they find us. They arrive at our doors and they change our lives. And is that not a miracle that is good enough?
100%.
Because that, for me, yeah, I mean, I went through, I could just stop eating, stop drinking, and pack it in. I truly have been, like, I have very bad ulcers and things, and so it's just like, oh, this is just too hard. But he has his right to this life. Phew, Look at you, you cutie patootie.
Loves to be on the camera.
What you did your camera boy? Hey, you're gonna fight me.
Hawk doesn't like the camera. He doesn't like when I put, as soon as I lift the phone to take a picture, he'll look away. He'll like, he has his moments. He's getting a little bit better, but for some reason, I don't know if they sense the technology. They sense that it's that, that vibration is coming at them, that they're, whatever it is, the he senses that, and he'll like notice and he'll turn right away and he won't want to be in the camera. It's really strange because I know other animals that are just lush, they love the camera, they'll pose and things for the camera,
Yeah,
but that's not him.
absolutely. I actually think there was some Lyle Watson again, this guy who went and lived with all the primitive, what we think are primitive tribes. I'm not so sure they are. They might have actually, just hacked the whole thing, and then we coming in and destroying their lives. Yes, it is. And let's look at the miracles. Your dog is a miracle. That is a soul that came to be with your soul and lead you through a very dark time. The souls of our, yes. And also they come to us when we are in darkness. They come, hi there, Angeline. You are such a beautiful spirit. I know you are ethereal, amazing, amazing energy, just amazing, beautiful energy. She really does have. You need to post that.
That's on her profile. I posted it yesterday, and then this is her profile picture right now. She's changed it. You can see his little tiny head in front there, but it's such an amazing picture.
I'm going to go look, because this is the kind of thing that fills me with joy and hope. Isn't that crazy? We've got so much darkness around us, and then suddenly we've just got this little creature, and this is just hope and inspiration and a reason to go on. And it's right here. It turned up. Its heart is beating, and it's looking to me and saying, can you, yeah, well, you're going to have to, you have to feed me, you have to walk me. I don't care if you're not having a good day, I still need to go out. Because very similarly to you, I also had, what is Gotha? Gotha is, it is a branch of one of the royal families. Saxe-Coburg Gotha is the surname of, King Charles. They changed it from Windsor. But a Gotha is just, it's a name. It sounds probably odd in English. Gotham City in New York. I actually wrote an article way back when I was doing languages about Gotham City and Goat Town. Gotham originally meant Goat Town. And then when the name changed, I said that there's an eeriness that comes over, like, who cares about the Goat Town, And then when it becomes Gotham City, then it becomes like a spooky, scary place. And what I was looking there linguistically is what is happening in the vibration of these words, that something that looks ordinary and mundane then gets turned into something that is kind of scary. And very much into the power of words and language and things like that. But with all the darkness, he was saying, what do? You get up and you take your dog for a walk. You call up your girlfriend. You show up and you interview somebody from South Africa you don't know. You ask tough questions. It is Germanic. Absolutely, Linda. It is Germanic. Saxe, Coburg, Gotha, all of those that's Germanic. And then we have a very complicated thing. Why did they bring the Germans in to the United Kingdom? Because the English throne was invalid.
The illegitimacy of the throne. They stole the throne, and I've been educated on that quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. They stole the throne, but the throne originally had to bring in bloodline families to give it credibility. Oh my goodness. Now I'm coughing. I do apologize. I'm coughing and you making a noise because you're sick of me speaking so much. And people don't know that I'm actually beholden to you. People think I'm a big mouth and I say whatever I want to think, and I've got to think about, and then they find out I am owned and ruled by all. Yeah, and he's growling at me because like he's had enough.
He wants more attention. So Taffy's just asking, if you've ever heard of the Black Sun.
Yes,
And
sensibly, I've been educated about this. Children of the sun, the black sun, the symbolism. I didn't know anything about it. It has been sent to me via various channels. And when I say it, I mean, when I spoke to the military people, I ended up speaking to quite high up, inadvertently, you just tumble into things. And there were conversations that we had about hypothetical scenarios. And I'm a vow making kind of, so I'm not married because like I'm scared to make a vow that I'd break. So there are a handful of vows I've ever made. Like I will put up with you whatever you want to do. But no question. If you under my guardianship and you've come into my life, then you are whatever he wants. The other vow I made was I'll serve truth. That means zero tolerance for any lie. A nightmare, an absolute nightmare, where literally every second word that anybody says is based on a lie. Like you've got to go, yeah, no, and eventually you've alienated everybody. You're fighting a deadly, and I think you may find yourself in this position. And then sort of almost parasite, demon, lower energies start to connect and attach to you and drain you. You get these problems out of nowhere. And if you look at them as, were you sent here on a mission? Was this part of it? Are you being awoken to perhaps you have a kind of almost special forces spiritual role, and you've been in boot camp, you have to experience the dark, and then a mission comes to you, a calling. Something like you got a dog and now you've got to take it for a walk. And it's a mission. And then you've actually made a vow. There's an implicit vow. I will take care of you to the end of your days. That's a vow. So the other vows that I made one was to serve truth. Yeah, don't take it lightly is all I can say, because you will be tested sorely. And the other one was, if I gave my word to anybody, I would do whatever it took in that. So one of the people was saying I said, oh my goodness, I would do anything to stop World War III. And he laughed at me. He literally laughed in my face. I was like, oh, you. And I went, no, I'm not saying I would stop it. I'm saying I would do. And he went, really? Look me in the eye. Look me in the eye and say that. And I'm telling you this because something crazy happened about 2-3 years ago. People would show up on my profiles with a different energy, and they would throw down something and they'd say, like, decode this. Entitlement. Very serious entitlement. And I thought, where's this coming from? Why am I complying? And I had this eerie feeling that somebody that I had spoken to was trying to say, look, heads up, there's a very cataclysmic, and this is true. This has been, that's why I did my geopolitics blog so lethally accurately. Like, it killed me. It kills me to write these articles. Back to back, 24 hours, you cannot take your eye off a story to get it accurate in an investigative journalist kind of. So I had a heads up the trouble was brewing. And the way it was presented to me was, if people speak now and say, no, not my name, it cannot be allowed to continue. If they don't say no, it's tacit consent. And the situation, you could, the countries that may not even be named 3 years ago, and now suddenly we're all sacrificing every ounce of everything, and oil, gas, food, everything is being sent into this great big sinkhole where there is no hope of victory, none whatsoever. And I'm deliberately being vague on the geopolitics because I know that's not kind of thing, but I'm actually extremely accurate on it. I follow battles and things like that very closely because I'm trying to assess when will people back home in the West say, no, woo, what did you do there? Biden, Joe, Trudeau, Justin, what did you do there? Because I've seen good old Justin with Rishi Sunak, the British Prime Minister, on the phone to their little friend in the thing, and they're like, hi, how are you? How are you having a nice day? Don't worry, we're going to hang in there with you. I mean, Justin Trudeau, oh, what of Canada? Why are you making obligations and fun phone calls to somebody in a lethal battle zone where, let's face it, if you get on a map, there's Russia, it's huge. There's China, it's huge. If you're going to fight with Russia and China, and then you're going to throw in Brazil, okay, and you've got a map of the world, you are at war with the entire world. And then I'm waiting for somebody to go, like, no, we cannot be at war with every time zone, date, time in every direction. This is crazy. This is going to destroy us. So the Black Sun and all that comes in this kind of military thing, because that's where you actually, the ability to read insignia and that, it really comes from that. And remember, again, back to coronation, this guy is the ruler of the armed forces as well as the church. Hey, you, wow, he's beautiful. Oh, wow. You are so big, and he's like that's like a wolfhound size. That's like a warrior dog.
Yeah, he's a big dog.
That's amazing, because those are the big dogs. You kind of being armed and shielded, and don't look too high for the miracles. I think you are actually quite violent by you just saying no to the situation. But there are a couple of big things I think the world, you were saying, I think with Aaron in the interview yesterday, that humanity could just come together, because that was what was conveyed to me. If everybody can just stop what they're doing and consider there's a human heart on the other side of the world, on the other hemisphere, in another season, even if they don't look like us, it's a human being. And we can all just tap in and go, wow, we're not going to be at war. Not in our names. And here's where it is hard for me, because wars are waged in the name of the United Kingdom and the USA. I have no say. I have literally no say. If people in America decide they are going to go to war with the country I live in, I don't have any say in that. So I have to say, hi, American friends, UK friends, could you please say no to the crazy general? Because do you know what one of the British generals said a couple of months ago? And I actually wrote an article on this, and I took it to all of my friends in the UK. I said, is this not crazy? Is this not crazy? And they went, it's actually quite boring. The general said, he said, the head of the armed forces in the UK, yes, I my whole life is subject, Taffy, to a higher entity. My whole life is in answering to a higher calling, to vows that I made, to truth, to all of these things. My whole life is basically service. It's not the thing about the immigrants is they being kind of used and exploited in their own way, because what happens in the home communities is when the young men go away, now you've got a gap in the family and the situation. And so thank you, Angeli. I bet she's beautiful. Sylvia Brown, her predictions. I've just been explained, Taffy, what Jesse has said to me about the forensics and so on. I think pretty accurate. I'm just going to say this, when it comes to predictions, I'm pretty accurate. And I know I can say it now because when this whole conflict started, I nailed myself down to articles where I took a position, and I said, if this happens, if X happens, then Y will follow. Came to me first as a vision. It literally came to me as like, I saw this happening, and then I had to, if it's a vision and I can't anchor it in reality, it's a delusion, right? So the urge to be not delusional about myself. So I thought, well, I'm going to have to write this down. And if I'm crazy, then I'm going to have to come back and face that I'm crazy and I got everything wrong. But I actually got a lot right, and I don't think it was a free pass. And it's the worst thing. You don't want to be right on things like this. It was like, you know this feeling. You don't want to be right. You'd much rather be wrong. It's like 1,000 million times. Oh, yeah, sure. It's just like you think it is. I'm wrong. Right? It's like horrifying, isn't it?
Oh, I wish I could eat crow, and I wish I could have to apologize to a whole bunch of people that, everything that I've been telling them for the last 30 years is not true, and that I was just crazy, and I was just, thought I was paranoid. I must be schizophrenic. I would say all kinds of things if I wasn't correct about the way the world works and things. So yeah, I agree there. I wish I was wrong. I really wish this wasn't happening the way it's unfolding.
Because you obviously have done a bit of a visionary, sort of like I am, and you also have an insight that you have to keep to yourself in order to survive in a society built on lies. Basically, in a society of lies, if you know what you know, then the amount of self-censorship you have to do.
Not me. I got kicked out of my house at an early age. And then the streets adopted me and taught me how to be strong and powerful and fierce and all these kinds of things. So I live with no fear, and I say what I want, when I want, to who I want. And, I don't get, too much flack for it, right? Like crazy Jesse's, conspiracy Jesse, crazy Jesse, cult leader Jesse. I've heard all kinds of shit over the years. Cult leader, that's, because I was trying to organize people to stand up against the government. So I was having meetings, and that was Jesse and his cult leader. And this was 30 years ago when I was organizing this stuff. So, I've heard it all, seen it all, but I'm just never been afraid. So I speak to everybody I can. I'm as vocal as I can. And, that's just who I've been. I haven't censored myself. I've been shouting. And so even for the last, say 15 or 16 years on Facebook, I would post things that are very cute. I'd post things that are very funny, and then I'd post a conspiracy. I'd post things that are cute, that are funny, and a conspiracy. So I didn't want to hammer people with just straight conspiracy, but I would also add in, so he's got lots of good stuff, funny stuff, and then some truth stuff. And then, so that's kind of how I, kind of went through the waters of social media. So, to not turn everyone off, just, that's all he wants to talk about is these crazy conspiracies. And, so I kind of, incorporated a whole bunch into my, social media etiquette.
What do you think? Because I was kind of like that on Facebook, and then I had this very specific vision and occasion. Christ consciousness, everyone is also Christ conscious. Well, I think you have to behave yourself your way to that. Because the thing about Jesus Christ is he taught the way. And when I talk about sovereignty and I say, seek truth, speak truth, live truth, I'm actually, I translated John 14:6. I am the way, I am the truth, and I am the life. And I thought, what does this actually mean? What does it mean? Great, Susie, kindred spirits and souls. And I went, I've got the way I think, the way I speak, the way I behave in this world. And that is where the idea of sovereignty came to me. It's like, if I'm speaking truth and lies are around me and I do not address them, am I still as sovereign as what I think I was? Am I still, and this is the very unpleasant thing where I start to, I'm going to not participate in any more lies. Yeah, that's how to lose friends and alienate people.
Our friend Jack Talcott, who we've had here on the Missing Link a few times, one of his missions is to abolish legal secrets. So, they have things, everything is under national security or classified, and all this kind of stuff is just, their mumbo jumbo in order to keep the truth hidden from the people. And so he really believes, he used to work for the post office, and, he had his whole up and downs, going through what his journey was. But that's what he really wants. He wants to speak to the UN. He wants to speak to people, stop this, legal secret, stop this classified. And that's back to, yes, we need to start speaking truth again. We need to start getting back, hiding behind the national security or it's classified. All that to me is rubbish, and it's just a way for people to keep people enslaved.
100%. And I hate to say it, but going back to John Dee, if you want to get to the head of the snake, and where did it start? He's the first 007, the first spy, the first propaganda. This is where classified comes in. This is where, so if we want to, because it's very difficult to fight against these, but if we want to reduce down to, this is the well, okay, that is the tap from which it comes. We are going to turn off that tap. We are going to trace this poison that has oozed over all of us all the way back to its source. And then we're going to say, oh, you started here, did you? Okay, well, this is where we cut you off. Because MI6 is, their work is lies. It's disinformation. We're going to pretend that these people are the heads of state in countries, and we're going to independence these countries. And then you've got, there's a place, I think, is it Tuvalu or Vanuatu in the Philippines? No, not the Philippines. Why can't I think of the name? Anyway, tiny little Polynesian island. Vanuatu, something like that. It's like literally this big, and they believe Prince Philip was their incarnated leader, and they're entitled to do that. But they've got a flag and a vote at the UN. It's like a tiny little island. How does that get the same vote as, say, a country like Germany with millions of people in it? How? Because you gave it a flag and a song, and you said you liberated and you've got a country now. They magicked up countries. We are living in the ultimate psyop, where I'm looking at something, these aren't even countries. These are military bases. It's not a country. You can't go and say, oh, well, we cut this little bit off the end of Russia, and so now this is going to be called this, and that's going to be called that, and these are brand new countries. And then we give them a song, and we give them a thing, and everybody in the news starts talking. And then at the UN, all these nations voted again. And I go, what nations? What nations? Because the truth about Germany is occupied. I don't know if you know this, but literally you can go and tap into any Google thing, and you can say military bases in Germany, and you get Rammstein. It comes up automatically. I've been to the website. And Jesse, there is real power in this. Let me tell you why there's power in this. Because I'm going to, like your friend, very interesting, end the secrets. That is exactly my mission. It's like, end this, because this whole war and everything is perpetuated on lies. And the general even said, he said, war is a game of fiction and chance. And I went, what? How do you not, everybody in the UK, get out in the streets right now and say this lunatic is taking us to war. And he's telling us in as many words, we're not going for real stuff. He didn't say anything real. He said fiction and chance. I clipped it from the news. I put it into my blog. I'm like, this is crazy. Say no. No, you're not going to. Would you go to war for fiction and chance? No, hell no.
No.
Why, when the general gets up in the United Kingdom and he says, we're going to go to war for Angela, yep, that's true. Why are we going to war for fiction? Why isn't everybody not in uproar? And it's just like, yeah, boring. And I'm going, no, because these words have consequences and meanings. If we don't stop it here, it's going to unravel there. If we don't stop it there, it's going to unravel. And it's like, now it's starting to really unravel. And this is my fear that I always said to the West, is it's going to recoil. And people say, well, you wanted us to go down. No, because what Ronald Reagan actually said in the 80s, he said, you want a place of hope. There must always be a place that people can hope and dream of going to. So if things go badly, in the UK and the USA and Canada. It's a corporation, and where did that corporate? And it belongs to the crown. Let us not forget the importance, the extreme importance of identifying the source of the. Yes, all fear is an illusion, but do you think some things are like a healthy fear, like a rattlesnake? I grew up on a farm where you had rattlesnakes and things. Like our garden ended, and then the bush began.
Yeah, I don't think that though that's fear, that's more of awareness. So if you're aware of a potential danger, it doesn't mean you have to be afraid of it. You just have to be smarter than that potential danger. So again, living in fear, being afraid of it, you're going to invite that snake to come do something to you. But if you're aware of it and you respect what it can do and you're not afraid of it, then now you're not inviting it into your world.
That what you've just said is amazing, because that snake represents everything, doesn't it? You're inviting it into your world. And what you said, you have to respect it in its own right, because it is a creature in its own right that has a right to exist. What if the entities we are doing battle with actually also, like the soldiers I spoke to, I ended up with respect. I was no more from a high thing. We're born into darkness from the moon, plasma. Maybe it's sun spirit. Well, our consciousness still has to be channeled into, do we know? I really believe this is very important. Do we? Empathy, physical awareness, yes. Different from, that's a very good point. And I'm actually learning something. That's another way of looking at it. Because
Well, I was just going to say, and that's like what Aaron is saying, is that, just because that these entities here have learned how to manipulate, how to use Solomon's mind magic, have turned it, do they not have the right to live here as just as much? And maybe if they turned their ways from manipulation and turn back into abundance and help, then is that not a way to transmute that darkness, bring it back into the light? And then maybe that's what our soul mission is here to do. Instead of try to eliminate the darkness or kill the darkness, maybe bring them over to the light. Wouldn't that what God would want us to do? Isn't that the basis of what all religions are, is to repent, turn away from your evil ways, to come back, or turn away from your sinful ways to come back into alignment, come back into the light. So I think that that's kind of where Aaron's coming from, is that we need to send them love and show them that they're not hated, they're not, we don't want to destroy them, we don't want to become them to eliminate them. And I think that that's where I'm in alignment with him, because I was in a podcast with a bunch of people from the United Kingdom, and they were talking, this is during the height of everything that was going on with the lockdowns and all that, and they're like, we're gonna march with 5 million people into London, and I said, to do what are you gonna do? And I said, are you going there to, throw them out? Are you going there for a thirst for blood? Are you want to get retribution? Do you want to become them, to stop them, to eliminate them? Do you want to become what these murderous, bloodthirsty and stuff? So I think that that's where, we have to figure out where we are as people, and how we want to figure out how to honorably, moralistically, do this the right way without, becoming, the evil that we say we want to replace.
Jesse, you have gone on to where you obviously, you're philosophical, because when I first read this thing of Camus, How Not to Be a Perpetrator or a Victim, I was blown away. Like, this is an extreme concept in a situation where your nation is at war with it, and you get up. It was actually in New York City. He went and he gave this speech. I think it was in French. And Viggo Mortensen, you can find it on YouTube, the full text of this. And it was Albert Camus, the philosopher, saying, how do we get through this? Love restores, not destroys. Yeah, he absolutely nailed it. But here's where I say, I went to the dark people. I went to the people who did terrible things in war, and I sat down with them and I respected them. That was my one rule, is I will show them absolute respect, because what they had to do for me to come and ask them what they did, they had to assume an enormous mantle of darkness. So I can't go in there. Well, I kind of did it in the beginning. I had expectations that I was going to smack people down and tell them how wrong they were. And then I found exactly what Aaron is talking about. They're real people. They're real people who maybe were misguided. Maybe I'm misguided about a lot of things. They thought they were heroes, and they're villains. And then a grudging respect developed. And then, like, I see your place in this world, and it's not for me to I have less condemnation for them than a lot of hypocritical people in suburbia. Damn, they know right from wrong. They know if they killed somebody, they know they did it. They're not confused in the slightest. But somebody living in an urban life can just destroy life after life after life with words and ideas and poisonous thinking. And then what about the tragedy, the people who commit suicide, the people who go into despair and depression? Because these poisonous entities, who've never killed it, they may be living behind a picket fence. In fact, M. Scott Peck, I don't know if you ever read his book, The People of the Lie. Yep. M. Scott Peck, he wrote The Road Less Traveled. He's an American psychologist. I love it. I just don't, when it's sprinkled with poison, that's exactly, we are taking poisoned apples all the time. That's why we are bewitched, enchanted, under spells. What is the antidote? How do we break the spell? Because this is the glassy eyes and we've just eaten from the poison apple. We actually in that poison phase. I think the Wizard of Oz, I just posted something where I posted, Dorothy goes and she sleeps in the field because of the opium, the poppy seeds in the Wizard of Oz. And then she gets water to wake her up from the sleep. If she did not get woken up from the sleep, she would just continue slumbering in the fields. So when the wake-up call comes, is it because we did something wrong or life isn't working out or we thought incorrectly, or is it just the wake-up call? Is it just the clarion call? Wow, okay, this is your mission, okay? It's you getting further information. You're now being given your next set of parameters, and this is where you're going to go. And exactly that, the dark wasn't as scary to me as the people who pretend to be good. Scariest people are the hypocrites. And the scope publicly, nothing scarier than a hypocrite. Oh, you're a great person. Oh, it's just, you know.
There's a lot of people that are religiously based that are the biggest hypocrites of all. They can go and tell you what you should and shouldn't do, how you should be following this and you should be doing this, as they go and they desecrate themselves and their honorability with their own actions. But they're the first one to tell you how you should be living your life. And so there is a lot of people that are living very hypocritically.
You've mentioned a word a few times that you never hear from these kinds of people, and that's honor. When you have a sense of honor, it is repulsive to you that people can be so two-faced. There's something repellent about it. It literally pushes you back. It's like, how can you say, oh, this is how to be a good person, when you are a lying, poisonous snake who has one word from a teacher or something? If you go back and you look at how many lives were ruined by words, I tell you now that all the soldiers in the field could not have done the damage that those people did. The psyches, because you never saw those wounds. You never saw them. What's harder to cure? He knows he killed somebody. He knows he did it. Or you killed souls. You practiced soul theft. You put somebody down again and again. Just while you, by the way, love restored, be the example, absolutely. Absolutely. But the hypocrite, yeah, that's the lies, the hypocrite, and the poison apple. Does that kind of resonate? That we've been fed a pack of lies.
Yeah, 100%. Like this soldier, that you're talking to, and maybe has done some things that they didn't want to do and they're not proud of. And then if you go and condemn them, it compounds it and makes things worse instead of trying to, show them compassion, send them love. We can't comprehend you're in this situation for whatever reason you got into, and then educate them instead of condemnation, judgment, because that's only going to make them, that separation even worse than it would be than trying to, come to a place where we can educate each other on how you got there, why you feel that they're in a position that probably they shouldn't be in, instead of telling them that they're just bad and those are wrong, you shouldn't be there, you're doing, the devil's work, right? That doesn't make a person feel good. That makes them want to dig their heels and say you're just a lunatic, instead of coming to that place where we can come to that, kind of comprehension where we can be on the same level playing field.
Here's how I approached it. I learned from them. I approached them as my teachers. Eventually, once I got over myself, then I no longer had ideas of right and what they should have done and they should not have done. I started to learn there's a whole part of existence I never even thought about, and I never thought was real, and I never thought mattered. And I realized if I'd been in their position and I was bundled into it, am I going to really turn around and say, yeah, I would have been exactly the same person as I am now? No. Your experiences make you who you are. And then I'm looking at this on a soul level, as a soul, like we're incarnated into this life, and it's getting very hard. Is there something beyond it? If there's something beyond it, is this not a lesson? And if it's a lesson, willingness to learn. So then the dark becomes a teacher and a mentor in its own way. So these people, as I say, I have less, I don't have an animosity. I have a sense of, I understand, and that's not to say I approve of people going and being soldiers. I don't approve of it at all. It's just that they're human beings. You hear demonic things and so on, and you hear they've done these, and then you speak to them and you unpack it and you go back and you find it's just a human being in a very stressful situation who reacted to their childhood and all kinds of things and orders.
Did the best they could, that they could, what they thought was right. Most people in most situations aren't intentionally trying to harm. Like, you've got some douchebag cops that, get into it so they can have power over others, and they do these horrific things, but that's a very small percentage. And most of them get into the position because they want to protect, they want to serve, they want to do the right thing. Same with the doctors. They get into position because they want to help, they want to heal, they want to be nurses, they want to do the best that they can, and then they're stuck embroiled into this pharmaceutical sorcery, black magic, that they want to do the right thing, but they're told they have to do this way. Protocol says these things, which leaves them in a conundrum on what should I actually do. Should I do the right thing, or should I, just follow orders? And it's back to, if you were just following orders, are you still accountable for those orders that, potentially have harmed other people? So I think that's where, that's where we're at with this, kind of this system that everybody's in. Like, the system has to come crashing down, is, because that's what's poisonous, is the system that, that is war, that is, poison, that is destruction, that is chaos. Like, that's the system that we're living in that keeps feeding. And that's the problem, not the people that are just trying to do the best that they can in the system that is as visibly corrupted.
And then what if we could identify that system and we could put it down to a man living in England a couple of 100 years ago, finding a way to summon up demons, creating the first spy agency, and then perpetuating lies throughout the planet, like we need war, We need spoils of war. We need more. What if this guy was actually John Dee and he summoned up these things and it's in plain sight and we never noticed because they put so much disinformation, cruel world. Yes, we can inspire our inner strength. Yes, true. You say, a doctor, why do they accept the first lie? If you think you're right, oh my goodness, mixed relatives, they took us through. Yes, exactly. Is it true? Is it true? That's a good point, Linda. Or have we not enabled bad people? Have we not enabled? I see Herman's addictions. Yeah. Did you say this, or did Aaron say this? That why aren't the churches open 24 hours a day?
That's one of the things. I've had times where I've been wanting to go to a church and I walk, every single door is locked and I don't get it. I'm like, isn't this supposed to be a house of God? How is a house of God locked where I can't, when I need right now to have some, just I wanted to be a part inside. And then, for me, I had to figure out things on my own apart from this house of God, making me not feel like this is really even a house of God if you're going to lock the doors.
Remember, they started to lock the doors with COVID.
Oh, it's way before that. I was talking. This is 20 years ago when I was needing a church, and I'm walking around, and But apparently, someone said, "Oh, when did they do that? In the 80s, maybe 70s, before the churches were all opened." I don't know, but apparently that's like a newer thing or whatever. And then someone mentioned, well, what about people stealing and things like that, or vandalization? Well, obviously we have cameras, and every single church should have, you have a lot of people that want to volunteer to do good things. So there's a couple people that could volunteer just in case some people come and need assistance. Say, a woman is battered by her husband. What's a nice safe place that she doesn't want to go to the police because of whatever those ramifications, but if she had a safe place to go in a church, knew that there would be some people to console her, she could sleep between the pews or whatever, have a nice safe place. Or if it was too cold outside, and there's people that have nowhere to go, well, wouldn't a safe place to go in a church? What would be more God's work to do than to house somebody that didn't have somewhere to go, instead of them sleeping on the streets, possibly freezing off their limbs or whatever, right? That would be true God's work. And then if I seen churches doing these type of things, then I would be in alignment with the church. I'm not in alignment with the church because I see very rarely anything that comes out of the church I'm in any alignment with. So I'm like, you could almost say I'm anti-church because of what I visibly see that they're doing.
Now, what you say is very important, because when you study war and things like that, one of the places people go for sanctuary is churches. So when a church is attacked, where people have gone for sanctuary, it's considered extremely an aberration. So what I'm saying is you are absolutely on the money. And then what happens when you lock this? What you're saying? What happens when you lock the churches? And then you just stop being churches, because everyone can go online, and suddenly that sanctuary place where maybe the battered woman or person in despair could go to, because churches were built, the reason those beautiful cathedrals are built is so you can look your eye up to the heavens and you can see something beyond you, and it's beautiful and it's majestic and it means something. We can't lump all, but they're kind of all going in a similar direction. And I'm going to argue again that because in the Middle Ages, churches did charity work. They used to take in the homeless people and they used to feed them. That was their job. It's in the job description. It says Jesus, when he says, I am the way, I'm the truth. What is the way? Yes. Limits. Buildings take over. Absolutely. Helpful enough. Yeah. This is the thing. They've annexed charity. They've annexed the places of good, the places where the interface of power and personal tragedy, like a church, is a very powerful eternal thing, and now it's been hijacked and it's been locked. And so, why did we accept that? What was the day when that was first locked up? And our parents went, whatever, we'll go next week. And then the next week it was locked up some more. And we, sovereign souls, did not say, no. Yes, and these are the true angels of the world. Is, yeah, food and banks, and things, yeah. Community. Community is very important. I really think it goes back to truth and lies. And I think there's something incredible about English and the West. There are more lies, generally speaking, in the West. They built the church of control. You know, Taffy, if you go into cathedrals in Europe, and I spent a lot of time in Europe growing up, there's incredible beauty there. It was a vehicle for artists, sculptors. They funded the arts. Artists would never have had a place if these churches had not existed. These beautiful things were built, and I feel like it is a sign of transcendence in humanity. A beautiful building that continues after, but now is locked up to me, and I can't go there anymore. That was the well, what Aaron speaks about, the well where you go to draw. You know, the quiet dark, the gentle dark. You can go to a place quietly in a moment of despair, a church, a house of God that is supposed to, there you are, right? And now it's locked to you. What? No. Hell no. This is not normal. We know this is not normal. Why? Yeah, so I'm suggesting we might have started, it's not normal. When did it start? Where did it start? If it started at a given place, and we are now in the end of a bargain type of situation where this thing has had enjoyed plenty and abundance, and now it's hitting reality. How do we navigate this world between worlds? You know, the Vatican, I mean, again, like the Rothschilds do this, and the Vatican. I grew up, I went to a convent in my early childhood. I had no molesting priests. It didn't happen. It just didn't happen. And we used to collect things for poor people, and they would take us to the poor areas, make us see this is who these have got faces, dignity, respect. I didn't get that out of the Catholic Church. What? Now I have parted ways, kind of mostly, but I still have a soft spot. But the way I was raised, the church was, no, I'm sorry, I was not molested. I was not abused. It wasn't, my brothers went to separate Catholic schools. And I said, did this ever happen to you? Because like when this first started coming out, and they were like, no, it never happened, wasn't normal, didn't happen. And we were taught right from wrong. And we were taught you treat everybody with respect. Doesn't matter if they're poor. This was school. It was like, this was part of your education was you treat people with respect. You collect up food for the homeless. They're social covers, but there's an intention there. And these intentions, I don't think you can just dismiss them. Social club, they are things, they're interfaces between heaven and earth. Child's coronation, the stone of destiny, is supposed to be the stone that Jacob slept on when he saw the Jacob's ladder. And remember, thank you, Carolyn, and so much love to you. Beautiful souls. And beautiful souls, we are in the crucible. We are being tested.
I don't know what crucible means.
Crucible is the melting pot where when you want to burn off the impurities in gold, you melt it down, and then the dross, it's the impurities in the gold. This is literally the alchemical thing of lead to gold kind of thing in a spiritual way. So first the gold has to be melted down and subjugated, and then it burns off the dross, the dead wood, the part of it that is corrupted, or not pure, not even corrupted, just not pure. And then when you pour the gold out of the crucible, after it's been heated up, changed states, it's pure. So if we are in the crucible, we are in that phase where we are having to cast away the impurities.
purify the impurity. So Earth is basically the crucible for humanity.
I think so.
Fascinating.
I think so. And the Jacob's ladder, again, back to the coronation, I wouldn't even be saying that. Jacob's ladder goes between heaven and earth. That's where he dreams that there's a ladder that goes between heaven and earth. So if this is an interface, and exactly what you've said now, that's fascinating. That's a starting point. That's like, oh, I don't even know where to start for the rest. But this I can start with. I can go, yeah, that's the guy. He summoned up this. Then the corporates entered into the picture. And this is how they lied and they lied. They actually created agencies based on lies and propaganda. So how do we undo this? How do we undo this magic spell? Thank you, Aaron. And Aaron, I looked at that and I thought, I really hope I get to speak to you, because wow, you and Jesse, it was just like unbelievable, mind-blowing things. I don't even know if you guys know how mind-blowing, because sometimes I was always of service to others. Michelle, I am so, thank you. That was my experience. People have all of this, everybody was just abused the Catholic. No, they weren't. Again, back to John Dee. This is when the break between the Vatican and the Protestant Church happens. So the Protestants then have a vested interest in trashing the Catholics. Jacob's, yes, that's very much no, it's Jacob's ladder.
What she's saying is, so some people believe that the ladder is actually the 33 vertebrae that we have in the back, and going to the Jacob's ladder is going up through the vertebrae up into being able to connect with, God, through your own ability. So that's why she's saying, is it one or the other, or maybe they're one and the same?
I think all of these things are fractals of each other. So it's exactly the same thing. And it will be, then we must expect to find the micro and the macro. Yes, Carolyn, exactly. Earth 3D is the crucible journey. And yes, the 33 vertebrae, and then the age of 33 in the Bible, these are all pointers. And I suggest to you, these are supposed to be like maybe, like when you went to write a test and you had like mnemonics and you're going to like remember this using this thing. Perhaps these are meant to help us. Perhaps like, okay, if you can work out Jacob's ladder, it's like the 33 vertebrae. These are clues on your journey as opposed to onerous or a dead end in their own. Perhaps they're just pointing you the way. Perhaps these are just hints and clues. Perhaps our companion 4 feet come to us out of nowhere. And then we get these hints and clues and like crazy stuff. And suddenly you find out Gog and Magog were revived, because I found this out by a friend. Absolutely. And I was like, that's crazy. So there was no Gog and Magog, and then they went and they resurrected it. Why would they do that? Why? Who does this? It's like, well, if you're power mad and you want to rule the world. And then we go back and we go, John Dee, though, that's crazy. And how I came across him was so random. It's not because I was brilliant or anything. Just random shadows on the wall. And I was like, why? MI6, why? And you're saying the spy, and you see, they all actually, this is all part of the puzzle.
Now, isn't the Rockefeller named John Dee as well? So isn't that fascinating? I think his name was John D. Rockefeller. So, and he's one of the most, evilest men that's ever walked the face of the earth. So it's fascinating how he has that same name as John Dee.
Not accidental. I put it to you, it's not accidental. And I've actually asked somebody, I said, does anybody into John Dee these days? And they said, yeah, there's actually a very thriving set of Freemasons in the United States and UK who still, and you saying John Dee.
John D. Rockefeller. That's, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that's what his name is.
Right. I think you're right, and I don't think it's accidental. I think it's a resonance. Because why has this been kept out of the public consciousness? When I came across, like I said, this is so crazy. Me in South Africa bought a book to be shipped to a Freemason I met randomly in a group on social media and went like, could you please just receive this book? Because it's so crazy. I just want to know that you know about this. Like that is how crazy it was. It was like, there's no way they know about this. Is this real? I bought a book. I said, would you please receive the book? To somebody I didn't even know. I just went to a group and said, hi, Freemason guy. Could you just, I'm not going to impose anything else. I will never ask another thing of you, and I haven't. I said, I need a US address to ship this book to because it's not going to come to me. I want to know if you really got it. And if these little drawings, because there's drawings about how to summon them up. I mean, there's diagrams and stuff. This guy was not unspecific. He was pretty damn specific. And then when he received, I said, so they do know. How is this not
well known? They don't want people to know it. But we are going to have to start wrapping this up. Is there anything maybe that you didn't get to share that you wanted to share with us today?
I think just to wrap it up, back to the coronation, they are very useful. Let's just put it as categorized, not as onerous, but useful. There's a marriage that happens, an alchemical marriage where the king is wedded to the nation. There is a Jacob's Ladder experience where they have the Stone of Destiny. These are all biblical references, and I think the Bible is a very important thing. There is this anointing, which is a type of baptism. And if you draw all the lines back, I put it to you that we are not so lost and we are not so unable as human beings to dig up truth and to start fighting the lies. I put it to you that we actually have more power than we think, even though a lot of times it doesn't feel like it.
Well, that's the whole big fallacy. Why can I do? I'm only one person. And, and another thing that I try to tell people is you purchasing power is one of your greatest powers in the system. Where do you put your money? Are you putting it to big box? Are you buying things on Amazon? Are you going to Walmart? Are you doing these things? Are you supporting your local farmers? Are you, where you spend your money is power in itself. We are much more powerful than that, but that's at just the base limit, because we are powerful, beings here that are taught that we're worthless. We're just sinners. We don't have power. We've been taught all these things that, have taken us away from what our true essence here is supposed to be.
If you don't think you have power, just go and try and tell off one hypocrite of one of these places, and then find out how hell erupts in your life.
How powerful your words could be by just poking the bear.
Yeah, I think we're pretty powerful, and I'm so grateful that you had me on. I think this is a very exciting round. I honestly think I see you on a mission. That is what I'm seeing. Thank you, and you're a beautiful soul too, Shell. Thank you, and thank you with what Jesse keeps saying is honor. You have an expectation of honor. What's her beauty streak you're taking? Oh, I think I'm like just hollow-eyed and gaunt and terribly unattractive. I really do. And like all I do is just war and supply chains. I'm like a little bit, and now this whole truth thing has put me at odds with everybody. and then there's this mission to find the others. There's a very urgent warning system going off in my periphery, and that is find the others. Find our power. We need it. Problems coming.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thanks for all you're doing to wake up humanity the best you can. May the source always be with you. Thanks, everybody, for all your likes, comments, hearts, shares, and stars. We appreciate all of your support. We got another missing link tomorrow. It's Thomas of Alpha Omega Energy. We were supposed to interview him like a couple weeks ago. He just never showed up. And that happened a few times, but with him, he's in Cambodia and they had the power outage, so he had no power, so completely comprehensible how he never showed up. So he's got a fascinating story. They've actually reversed engineer remdesivir, that thing that they've been giving to everybody. So they've they reverse engineered it, and they've been going to court cases or whatever. So just going to be a fascinating story. A lot of
I'm,
people are looking forward to it. While we
I'm
were
going to
sad it didn't
definitely
happen.
look into that because this
Yeah.
remdesivir is a horror drug. If they can reverse engineer that, that's what humans. Thank you, Taffy, and thank you for your questions, because questions are that's the guide.
And could you tell us about your links? You got the LinkedIn, and then you've got your Patreon. This is my geopolitical blogs.
My Patreon, and now I have to tell you, I am setting up a separate thing for really what is the reason beyond my Patreon. Patreon, I ruthlessly documented war and supply chains, and I do that to keep my visionary side in check. Like I have to be able to document things in reality. So it's logistics, supply chain, and that is my credibility that I can say the other things because I've got that body of work. And I also use that to other people to say, okay, you can see I've been pretty much right about these things. So it's not for me that I'm saying maybe we need to take a different approach. I'm saying it because storm is building and we want to dissipate it.
Awesome. That's well said. And there's right now, we've got 46 people watching live on Rumble, and we've only got one thumbs up. So please put a thumbs up, show your support. You know, the least you can do is, you know, give us a thumbs up. You know, it just kind of helps with the algorithms if people are, you know, liking and responding and all that kind of stuff. So love y'all. May the source be with y'all. And we'll see you next time. We're back on the Missing Link. Bye, Marie-Ora. And bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.